From a blind date came a sister who is a CEO. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Beg Me. Lin Zhuangxuan's company was very small, so she rented an office of 50 to 60 square meters and divided it into 2 rooms. At this time, there were only 2 girls in the outer room. They looked okay, but they were not really beautiful. After saying hello, Lin Zhuangxuan went to the inner room, but Su Weifeng felt that the atmosphere here was a bit weird. The 2 girls were obviously hesitant to speak, and their expressions were very unnatural. There were 2 desks in the inner room, as well as various photographic equipment, which looked a bit messy. Behind one of the desks sat a girl of the same age as Lin Zhuangxuan. When she saw Lin Zhuangxuan, she stood up and showed an unnatural smile on her face. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't notice anything unusual and said, "Chen Jiajia, why did you call me back so quickly? I'm talking to them about the venue at Century Plaza." Su Weifeng then realized that Lin Zhuangxuan went there to play with others for another purpose. It might be because of insufficient funds. If she wanted to use someone else's venue, she had to get familiar with them to save money. This Chen Jiajia didn't answer directly, but looked at Su Weifeng. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said, "This is my brother-in-law. He happens to be going with me to do some work today. It's okay. Just tell me if you have anything to say." Chen Jiajia said, then bit her lip and said, "Zhuangxuan, I'm so sorry. Something happened at home, and I'm in urgent need of money now." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately said generously, "How much do you want? I still have some in my hand. I'll give it to you first." No. Chen Jiajia's face showed a more guilty look and said, "That's not what I meant. I meant, I won't be back this time, so I want to quit." Quit? Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes widened and said, "Although we are facing some difficulties now, the investors we contacted will come to inspect in the next few days. If we succeed this time, we can expand our business in an instant. How can you quit at this time?" "Zhuangxuan, investors, Chen Jiajia hesitated to speak, then sighed lightly and said, "I really have to go back, so I can only quit. I have calculated our assets, a total of 400,000. When talking about this number, Chen Jiajia's voice was very low. 400,000. You have to know that when we were talking to the investors, the company's valuation was 5 million. You are only converting it into 400,000 now, which is too much of a loss. That's because the financing has not been successful yet. I can only calculate it based on our current assets, Zhuangxuan. So as long as you give me 200,000, I will withdraw directly and the company will be all yours. As for how much your company's valuation will be in the future and how much capital you can raise, it has nothing to do with me." Lin Zhuangxuan wanted to persuade. Chen Jiajia hurriedly said, "Zhuangxuan, I know you want to expand the company, but this is really not that easy to do. We are still young and can find easier things to do. Let's just leave it at this. I'm still waiting to go back. Can you just give me the 200,000 directly?" Lin Zhuangxuan frowned and said, "How can I come up with 200,000 at once? If I can take it out, we don't have to look for investors anymore. Then you think of a way. Your sister is very rich. By the way, your brother-in-law is here. Just ask him to pay." Chen Jiajia turned his gaze to Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng met Chen Jiajia's gaze with a faint smile on his face and said, "Money is not a problem, but have you really decided so?" Chen Jiajia felt that Su Weifeng's gaze seemed to be able to see into her heart, as if Su Weifeng saw through everything about her. She quickly avoided his gaze and said, "Have I really decided?" Su Weifeng took out his mobile phone and said lightly, "You still have a chance to regret now. If I give you money, you will have no chance to regret it at all." "I won't regret it," Chen Jiajia answered very quickly. "Okay, give me the account number, Zhuangxuan. You sign with her." Lin Zhuangxuan hurriedly said, "Brother-in-law." Su Weifeng smiled slightly and said, "Since she has made up her mind, don't force her anymore." Chen Jiajia also hurriedly said, yes, I have already decided, Zhuangsun, let's do this. Alas. Lin Zhuangsun sighed deeply, very reluctant, but finally signed the transfer contract helplessly. Su Weifeng also directly transferred the money to Chen Jiajia. Lin Zhuangsun wanted to talk to Chen Jiajia again, but Chen Jiajia's phone rang. After taking a look at the number, Chen Jiajia said hurriedly, I'll go out and answer the phone first. Then she ran out. Why is this happening? How can Jiajia just quit? This is too sudden. Lin Zhuangsun frowned and shook his head repeatedly. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, something else may happen next. Something else? What? Lin Zhuangsun frowned and said, this is already the worst news. Is there anything worse? Su Weifeng said, which company is your investor? Lin Zhuangsun immediately said, Mingyang Film and Television Company. What's wrong? Mingyang Film and Television Company? Oh, I see. Lin Zhuangsun rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng and said, brother-in-law, why are you talking so weird? You make me feel uneasy and a little scared. Su Weifeng laughed and said, don't worry, nothing will happen. Sometimes bad things can turn into good things. Chen Jiajia walked in again, moved her lips twice, and said, Zhuangsun, the representative of the investor is here. What? The representative of the investor is here? Lin Zhuangsun shouted excitedly, why is it so sudden? We are not ready yet. No need to prepare. It's just in time for me to see what the company opened by our school beauty Lin Zhuangsun looks like. A woman's voice came over along with the footsteps of several people. Zheng Dongmei. Lin Zhuangsun screamed, as if she had seen a ghost. The woman walking in the middle was about the same age as Lin Zhuangsun. She was wearing a guxy business suit and a Vank 4-leaf clover necklace around her neck. She was also quite pretty. She raised her chin and said in a condescending manner, yes, it's me. You didn't expect it, did you? Why did you come to me? Lin Zhuangsun was still a little confused. Zheng Dongmei was her college classmate. The two met in the student union, but their relationship was not good. Because Lin Zhuangsun had a lively personality, many boys liked to hang around her. Zheng Dongmei was quite jealous, and then said some slanderous words about Lin Zhuangsun behind her back. Later, she even ridiculed Lin Zhuangsun to her face. It's not to say that their relationship was hostile, but it was basically the kind of relationship that they would never see each other again. Chapter 27, Vicious Woman. Zheng Dongmei chuckled and said, I came to see you. You were a beautiful schoolgirl in school. I thought you had achieved a lot. I didn't expect that you could only run a small company like this. Haha, I'm so disappointed. Lin Zhuangsun snorted and said, I do whatever I want to do. As long as I'm happy, it's none of your business. You are really wrong. This time it is really my business. Let me introduce myself. I'm the deputy director of the investment department of Mingyang Film and Television Company. Zheng Dongmei slowly reported her identity and then looked at Lin Zhuangsun with an expectant look. Lin Zhuangsun's face froze for a moment and Zheng Dongmei's smile became even thicker. She said, I have to add that I'm responsible for your company's financing. You are responsible for our company's financing. Lin Zhuangsun's mouth twitched hard, which was an indescribable bitterness. Suddenly realizing something, he turned his eyes to Chen Jiajia. Chen Jiajia lowered her head quickly, not daring to look Lin Zhuangsun in the eye. Zheng Dongmei chuckled and said, your partner is very wise. He just quit the company. Chen Jiajia, what's the future of such a small company? Come back to our Mingyang Film and Television. There will be a better space for you to display your talents. Thank you, Minister Zheng. Chen Jiajia said softly. Lin Zhuangsun's face was full of anger. He pointed at Chen Jiajia, and his fingers trembled. Jiajia, we started a business together, and suffered so much together. It's not easy to get the company to this point. You actually teamed up with others to frame me. Chen Jiajia's lips moved, wanting to speak, but in the end she didn't say a word. Zheng Dongmei chuckled and said, Lin Zhuangsun, your small company has no future. This is called moving forward. Chen Jiajia has made the wisest choice. Lin Zhuangsun gritted her teeth, took a deep breath, and said, you have been demoted and criticized, so let's talk about business now. Business? Oh, by the way, we still have to talk about financing. I have always been clear about the distinction between public and private. Although we had all kinds of conflicts when we were in school, it did not affect our discussion of cooperation. After all, there is money to be made, so why not do it? Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Zheng Dongmui in surprise, then quickly calmed down her emotions, nodded and said, yes, our company has made some achievements in the field of short videos, especially the few works we created in the early stage. Su Weifeng was really surprised. He really didn't expect that a girl as emotional as Lin Zhuangxuan could control her emotions so well. When encountering things, she could determine the severity of the matter without being affected by her emotions. Zheng Dongmui waved her hand to interrupt Lin Zhuangxuan and said, we have read all these things and your information. In fact, our company is still very interested in your small company and is still very interested in investing in you. Lin Zhuangxuan was confused, but she said calmly, I also think this is a win-win cooperation. It is true that we are interested in investing, but Zheng Dongmui stretched out her voice, then showed a deep smile on her face, and said, as for the asset valuation, our company does not agree. Lin Zhuangxuan's heart skipped a beat and said, then what is your valuation of our company? After careful calculation and evaluation by our company, the valuation of your company. Zheng Dongmui stretched out 4 fingers. 4 million. Lin Zhuangxuan breathed a sigh of relief. Their own valuation offer was 5 million, and 4 million was completely acceptable. No. 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 Zheng Dongmui shook her head and said, you overestimate your small company. It's not worth 4 million. Our valuation is 400,000. 400,000. Lin Zhuangxuan's face turned red with anger and said, our company's current tangible assets are also 400,000. The most important thing is our company's intangible assets. Don't you consider this? Do you really think your ideas are valuable? Let me tell you, there are so many people who want to do this now. As long as I say a word, there will be countless people asking me to invest. I can invest 300,000 in you, which is 75% of the 1 million shares. You are robbing. Lin Zhuangxuan was furious. What you said is not right. What do you lack now? Money, and our company can invest money in you, so that your company can continue. Of course, if you don't want to, then I can't do anything about it. I'm giving you this opportunity, because we are alumni. Such an opportunity. I don't want it. This is absolutely a humiliation, an extreme humiliation. Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth, stood up all of a sudden, pointed at Zheng Dongmui and shouted, my company does not welcome you, get out of here, immediately, right now. Zheng Dongmui laughed so hard that her body shook, and after a while she said, what's the matter, are you furious? If you want a higher valuation, I will give you a chance. As long as you beg me, I will raise the valuation of your company to 2 million. Please? Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sound from between his teeth. Even if this company goes bankrupt immediately, I won't beg you. Get out. Zheng Dongmui's face darkened and she said, Lin Zhuangxuan, I'm giving you a chance, but my patience is limited. If you miss this opportunity, you won't have another chance. Do you think that, if you can't raise funds from me, you can still find other investors? Then you are too naive. We are Mingyang Film and Television, the most open and inclusive film and television company. We are the most willing to invest in the entire market. If you can't get money from us, then you will never succeed from others. Haha. Lin Zhuangxuan laughed in anger and said, Zheng Dongmui, do you think you have grasped my lifeblood, so I have to let you do whatever you want, isn't it? Zheng Dongmui's crossed legs trembled slightly, with a sarcastic smile on her face, as if she had Lin Zhuangxuan in her grasp. Lin Zhuangxuan puffed out his chest and said, unfortunately, you are wrong. Although I, Lin Zhuangxuan, have no money, I worked hard to establish this company, but I, Lin Zhuangxuan, still have a strong backbone. I will never sell my dignity for money. Well said. Su Weifeng shouted and applauded. Such a Lin Zhuangxuan made Su Weifeng admire him greatly. Zheng Dongmui turned her head to look at Su Weifeng and said coldly, who are you? You have no right to speak here. Su Weifeng smiled at Zheng Dongmui and said, you are just a deputy minister. Do you really think you can really decide whether to raise funds or not? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, A Matter of Words. I can't decide. How can you decide? What a joke. Zheng Dongmui sneered. Su Weifeng still had a smile on his face and said, you are right, I can decide. Puff. Zheng Dongmui burst into laughter and said, you are not afraid of the wind biting your tongue when you speak. Are you a senior executive of our company? Unfortunately, I know all the senior executives of the company, and there is no such person as you at all. You are right again. I'm indeed not a senior executive of your company, but I can let the senior executives of your company handle this matter. You. Zheng Dongmui looked at Su Weifeng again. He was wearing ordinary casual clothes, and he didn't have the luxurious air of a rich man, nor did he seem to have the bearing of a big man. She immediately chuckled and said, okay, then I want to see how you let the senior executives handle this matter. Su Weifeng didn't waste any more time talking to her, and directly dialed a number. As soon as the call was connected, he said directly, my friend Lin Zhuangxuan is raising funds, and Zheng Dongmui, who is doing this in your company, has a grudge against her. After that, he hung up the phone. Is that all? Zheng Dongmui's eyes widened, feeling shocked. That's enough. Su Weifeng nodded. Puff. Zheng Dongmui burst into laughter again, saying, Lin Zhuangxuan, tell me, I finally figured out why you can't run your company. What kind of people did you find? They are simply people with low IQ. The two people who came with Zheng Dongmui couldn't help laughing at this time. The tone of this guy's call was like an order. Who are the senior executives in their Mingyang company? Who can order them like this? Originally, she was a little suspicious whether Su Weifeng really knew the senior executives, but now she completely thought it was impossible. Shut up. Lin Zhuangxuan shouted at Zheng Dongmui. Zheng Dongmui, you can say dirty words to me, but you can't say that about my brother-in-law. She was also made to laugh and cry by Su Weifeng. At this time, Su Weifeng was still in the mood to do this. This was too fake. Even if he wanted to scare Zheng Dongmui, he should have put on a good show. This was seen through at a glance. Brother-in-law? Zheng Dongmui's expression suddenly became interesting, and then she giggled, looking at Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan with an ambiguous look, then shook her head and said, Lin Zhuangxuan, you are really playing high-end now, brother-in-law and sister-in-law, tut-tut. The other people also laughed, and there was a kind of obscene light in their eyes. Lin Zhuangxuan's face was at 10, and he gritted his teeth and said, you are really shameless. You think of dirty things in your heart, and think that others are as dirty as you. The cell phone rang suddenly. Zheng Dongmui looked at the number and her eyes suddenly changed. She subconsciously looked at Su Weifeng, then stood up and answered quickly, with a smile on her face, and even her waist couldn't help but bend down. Boss AO. Zheng Dongmui, you are fired. What? Zheng Dongmui screamed suddenly, and she couldn't believe her ears. I said you were fired, don't you understand? Give the phone to Miss Lin Zhuangxuan. Ah. Mr. Zhao, give her the phone. Mr. Zhao was just drawing. Zheng Dongmui's phone almost fell to the ground in shock. Instinctively, she quickly handed the phone to Lin Zhuangxuan and stammered, Mr. Zhao wants to talk to you. Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't hear what Zheng Dongmui said on the phone. She looked at Zheng Dongmui vigilantly, and didn't reach out to answer it. Zheng Dongmui quickly stuffed the phone into Lin Zhuangxuan's hand and said anxiously, hurry up and answer it. Lin Zhuangxuan put the phone to her ear with doubt and whispered, Mr. Zhao? Hello, Miss Lin Zhuangxuan. I'm Zhao Shengang from Mingyang Film and Television Company. This time, our company actually sent an unqualified subordinate to discuss cooperation with you. It's really rude. I sincerely apologize to you now. Mr. Zhao, you are too polite. Lin Zhuangxuan also stuttered all of a sudden. Zhao Shengang, the CEO of Mingyang Film and Television Company, you should know that Mingyang Company is one of the top 10 film and television companies in China, with assets of over 10 billion. Such a CEO actually took the initiative to call her and apologized right away. It was not a polite apology, but a very humble apology. This is definitely a mistake in our work. I'm really ashamed of the trouble it has caused you. I have fired Zheng Dongmui. This. Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Zheng Dongmui, only to see that Zheng Dongmui's face was pale, and she stood there blankly, looking lost. Obviously, what CEO Zhao said was true, which scared her even more. For cooperation, I will invest 5 million in you, accounting for 10% of the shares. Do you think it's okay? What? Lin Zhuangxuan screamed again. If you think the shares are too much, then 5%. No, no. Lin Zhuangxuan was so scared that sweat broke out on his head, and said, this is too much. Our company's total valuation is only 5 million. No, no, you don't know enough about your own company. I think a valuation of 50 million is too little. If you feel that the funds are not enough, then I will invest 10 million and account for 10%. What do you think? Lin Zhuangxuan swallowed hard, forcing himself to calm down, and said, Mr. Zhao, thank you for your kindness. I think a valuation of 5 million is very reasonable. I don't want that much money. 1 million should be enough. Your company will hold 20% of the shares. That won't work. This is too cheap. This will definitely not work. I think 5 million for 10% of the shares is more reasonable. No, no, 5 million for 10% of the shares. I really can't accept it. 1 million for 20% of the shares. Zheng Dongmui and the others were all dumbfounded. What was going on? Although they didn't hear what Mr. Zhao said, they got a general idea from Lin Zhuangxuan's words. Mr. Zhao of their company was such a shrewd person. When investing, he always severely suppressed the valuation. Now he took the initiative to raise the valuation of a company with a valuation of 5 million to 50 million, and even made additional investments. Is he crazy? Su Weifeng listened to the two people pushing and shoving each other, and he was a little impatient. He said, Zhuangxuan, take a long-term view. You must make your company bigger. Only when you have enough funds can you let go. Just listen to Mr. Zhao. Everyone in the room suddenly became quiet, and all their eyes were fixed on Su Weifeng. Phone call. It was because of Su Weifeng's phone call just now that Mr. Zhao called and this happened. Chapter 29. I regret it so much. Okay. After Su Weifeng said this, Lin Zhuangxuan didn't know what to do, so she just said it. Zhao Shengang was overjoyed and said hurriedly, thank you, Miss Lin Zhuangxuan. I will arrange someone to repay the money right away. Ah, but the contract. The contract will go through the procedures slowly. You should develop the company first. It's settled. Thank you again, Miss Lin Zhuangxuan. I will come to apologize to Miss Lin in person later. After hanging up the phone, Lin Zhuangxuan handed the phone back to Zheng Dongmui. Her mind was still in a daze. Everyone was silent, and at this time everyone's mind was obviously the same as Lin Zhuangxuan's, and they didn't come back to their senses at all. Pa. Zheng Dongmui was the first to come back to her senses, came to Lin Zhuangxuan, raised her hand, and gave herself a loud slap, then knelt down with a plop, and said, Lin Zhuangxuan, it's all my fault. I was blinded by lard, and came to trouble you. I'm not a human being. Then he slapped himself twice. What are you doing? Get up quickly. Lin Zhuangxuan was so scared that she stepped back and almost fell into Su Weifeng's arms. Fortunately, Su Weifeng held her waist. Zheng Dongmui had a clear slap mark on her face, which showed that she had hit her hard. Tears flowed out at this time. It's not easy for me to get to this point. I worked hard to get to this position. Lin Zhuangxuan, please, tell Mr. Zhao not to let him fire me. I really know I was wrong. I will never dare to do it again. Lin Zhuangxuan completely frightened Zheng Dongmui and stammered, You get up first and talk it over. If you don't agree, then I won't get up. Zheng Dongmui knew that whether she could avoid being fired depended on Su Weifeng. She didn't know Su Weifeng, so she couldn't ask Su Weifeng, and Su Weifeng was also because she offended Lin Zhuangxuan. As long as she could get Lin Zhuangxuan's forgiveness, there would be hope. Lin Zhuangxuan had never encountered such a thing before, and she didn't know how to deal with it at this time. Su Weifeng said calmly, if there is no call from Mr. Zhao, what will be the consequences? You know better than anyone that some things should be done with consequences. If you don't want Mr. Zhao to pursue you again, just leave. Zheng Dongmui's face suddenly showed a look of fear. Zhao Shengang was not an ordinary person. He was a very cruel person. Now he just fired her. If he pursued her for offending Lin Zhuangxuan, she would be in trouble. Su Weifeng meant that the matter was over. It was a barely acceptable consequence. He smiled bitterly, stood up slowly, and said to Lin Zuangsun, "Lin Zuangsun, you really have a good brother-in-law." There was still an indescribable envy in these words, but she didn't dare to be jealous at all. Lin Zuangsun's mouth twitched, and she didn't know what expression to use to face Zheng Dongmui. Even if Zheng Dongmui had just treated her like that, seeing that Zheng Dongmui was already so miserable, she couldn't do anything to add insult to injury. Zheng Dongmui left in despair, and the people she brought also left in disgrace. The two of them were now feeling uneasy, not knowing whether they would also be implicated when they returned to the company. In the office, in addition to Su Weifeng and Lin Zuangsun, there was also Chen Jiajie. Chen Jiajie's face was also extremely ugly at this time. Her lips moved twice, and she said softly, "Zuangsun, I." Lin Zuangsun also looked at Chen Jiajie, and her mood suddenly became extremely complicated. She opened her mouth and said, "Jiajie." Chen Jiajie hurriedly said, "Zuangsun, I'm not sincere in quitting. Zheng Dongmui forced me to do so. I will not quit now." Lin Zuangsun subconsciously wanted to agree, but Su Weifeng said directly, "Before signing, I asked you if you were sure. You were very sure at that time, so let's leave it at that." Chen Jiajie's tears flowed instantly, and then she cried out, covering her face, and ran out quickly. Just now, she was about to become a shareholder of a company with a valuation of 50 million, but she gave up just a little while away. If she had insisted a little longer at that time, and stayed with Lin Zuangsun for friendship, even if Zheng Dongmui came a little earlier, and she had not signed the contract, the result would be different. But now she only took the 200,000 yuan she had invested, and gave up the best opportunity in her life. She regretted it so much. Lin Zuangsun looked at Su Weifeng with resentment and said, "Brother-in-law, Jiajie has been fighting with me for more than 2 years, but she was deceived for a while." Su Weifeng shook his head and said, "In the face of interests, she has betrayed you once, and there is no guarantee that she will do it a second time. And after this time, can you really trust her as much as before? Will you really not be on guard against her at all?" Lin Zuangsun was speechless. Su Weifeng patted Lin Zuangsun on the shoulder and said, "So instead of being on guard against each other in the future, it's better to just break it off, so as to avoid greater conflicts over interests in the future. Besides, why should she enjoy your interests?" Lin Zuangsun shook her head, knowing that she should put Chen Jiajie's matter aside, and then looked at Su Weifeng, with a strange look in her eyes. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Su Weifeng deliberately took a step back, looking very scared. Lin Zuangsun's eyes suddenly became fierce, and she approached, until she forced Su Weifeng to lean against the wall. She stopped, snorted, and said, "Okay, my dear brother-in-law, you are really a hidden talent. With just one phone call, you can make the CEO of Mingyang Film and Television Company beg me for cooperation, and give me such a large sum of money." Thinking of this, Lin Zuangsun was shocked again. 5 million, how much favor is this? This is definitely not as simple as friendship. Su Weifeng grinned and said, "A favor, actually. He just owes me one, and he's eager to repay me. Now that he has this opportunity, he repays me. A favor? How big a favor is it? He went abroad before, and I happened to be on a mission. By chance, I saved his life." Lin Zuangsun's eyes widened and said, "It's a life-saving favor. Such a boss with a net worth of tens of billions only gave me 5 million in return, and it was an investment. Why do I feel like I lost money?" Su Weifeng made Lin Zuangsun laugh, and said, "It seems like he did lose money. How about I let him invest more?" Lin Zuangsun was scared and shouted, "Okay. 5 million. I don't know what to do with it. I'm afraid I'll bite my hands if I have too much money." Then he also laughed. Chapter 30 Biting the Hand. Ding. Lin Zuangsun's cell phone message alert sounded. She took out her cell phone and looked at it. She was stunned and stammered, "My hand, my hand. What's wrong with your hand?" Su Weifeng looked at her hand in confusion. "So many zeros, it really bit my hand." Lin Zuangsun handed the phone to Su Weifeng. Lin Zuangsun's cell phone message alerted that her company's bank account had received a sum of 5 million yuan. "This guy's really quick." Su Weifeng also laughed. Xiao Shengang, this guy is quite reliable. What should I do now? Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Su Weifeng pitifully. Su Weifeng smiled and said, what can I do? You are just waiting for money to do things, so just keep doing things. Oh. Lin Zhuangxuan sat down. Her expression was dazed for 2 minutes, then she patted her cheek and said, calm down, calm down. Then she grabbed the bottle of mineral water on the table and drank most of it. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan with a smile and did not disturb her. A sudden change in money and status, especially a big change, is the most stringent test of human nature. Another 5 or 6 minutes passed, and Lin Zhuangxuan finally breathed a sigh of relief, then focused her eyes on Su Weifeng and said seriously, Su Weifeng, now we have to talk about our business. This girl did not call her brother-in-law, but called him by his name directly, and her expression made her look very formal. Su Weifeng asked, what do we have to discuss? First of all, you paid the 200,000 yuan to Chen Jiajia for the withdrawal of her shares, which is equivalent to you acquiring Chen Jiajia's shares. That is, you already have 50% of the company's shares. Now that the financing is successful, it is estimated to be 50 million. We will sell 10% of Mingyang Film shares, and each of us will have 45% of the shares. I decided to only take 10% of the shares, and the remaining 80% are yours. You are now the company's major shareholder. Su Weifeng narrowed his eyes and said, you are really generous. My valuation of the company is only 5 million. In fact, my mental price is 4 million. Even if I take half, it would only be 2 million. Now 10% is still 5 million. I have already taken a big advantage, and you exchanged it for a favor of saving my life. I can't take advantage of you anymore. Su Weifeng thought for a while and said, how about this, you take 20%. I don't understand this industry, and I don't know how to do business. You still have to manage it. That's it. Su Weifeng was really satisfied with Lin Zhuangxuan's performance. This girl really knew the big picture, was not greedy for money, and knew how to be humble. The company's valuation was, after all, just an imaginary number. It would only be useful if it went public. To put it bluntly, the only thing the company could really offer was the 5 million in financing. Giving Lin Zhuangxuan these shares was equivalent to Lin Zhuangxuan's current assets reaching 1 million. Su Weifeng didn't care about money. He didn't care about these millions at all, but he didn't insist on giving Lin Zhuangxuan more shares. After all, she hadn't done a real big business yet. Giving her too many responsibilities would only put a lot of pressure on her, which would be unpleasant. Lin Zhuangxuan wanted to argue, but when she saw Su Weifeng's calm, but extremely determined eyes, she pursed her lips and said, okay, that's settled. Su Weifeng was no longer serious, and smiled and said, what are your plans? What should we do next? Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes also came alive, and he rolled his eyes and smiled, saying, how about, let's just divide the money. I'll get 20%, and I can also get 1 million. Haha, if you want, I have no objection. Then we will just return 500,000 to Xiao Shengang, and tell him that the company has failed. Puchy. Lin Zhuangxuan also laughed out loud. Lin Zhuangxuan stood up, trotted all the way to Su Weifeng's back, clenched his fists with both hands and gently hit Su Weifeng's shoulders twice, saying, now you are the chairman, what should we do next? I'll listen to your explanation. So servile? Su Weifeng turned his head, and couldn't help laughing. Lin Zhuangxuan smiled proudly. You are the major shareholder. Is that so? Okay, then I will appoint you as the president of the company, in charge of all the company's affairs. You have the power to deal with any affairs, and you don't have to report to me. Lin Zhuangxuan retracted his fist, and said with a pout, I thought I would have an easy time, but you actually pushed such a heavy responsibility to me. I don't want to do it. This is a power of 5 million. Su Weifeng said with a smile. Lin Zhuangxuan curled her lips and said, I don't want 50 million either. I'm not a workaholic like my sister. I do this just because I've always dreamed of becoming a director. I just want to shoot something I want to shoot, not run a company. Oh, I don't understand either. Why don't we do this? The two of us will set up the company first, and then we can hire a dedicated manager. Then we can do what we like. That's what you said. You can't lie to me. If you give up, I won't care either. Okay, I'm fine too. Let's start a company like this, and it will sound good when we tell others about it in the future. Lin Zhuangxuan said excitedly. You're right. My family doesn't agree with me doing this. They always say that I'm not playing with serious things. My sister even says that I'm fooling around. Let's see who dares to say anything to me now. Haha, now you can be proud of yourself. Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly stared at Su Weifeng with a very gentle look and said, brother-in-law, are you the lucky star sent to me by God? Why do you say that? Lin Zhuangxuan put her hand on Su Weifeng's shoulder again and said softly, you said we have only known each other for a few days, and you saved my life, and then you saved me from being insulted by Sun Yanlin and others, and helped me vent my anger. When something happened in the company, you immediately helped me solve it, and solved it so beautifully. I feel that the things I have encountered in my life are not as wonderful as what I have encountered in these few days. When you say that, I feel a little embarrassed. Su Weifeng responded with a smile. Anyway, you are my brother-in-law. We are relatives. What's there to be embarrassed about you helping me? If you don't help me, I will have to settle accounts with you. Thinking about it, I feel at ease all of a sudden. Su Weifeng couldn't help laughing again. Lin Zhuangxuan, this girl, is born with a factor that makes people happy. Being with her is easy and happy. Chapter 31 Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law video. Forget it, let's not tell my sister about this for the time being. I just got the money, and if I don't do a good job, she will have more things to say about me. I must make some achievements, and then impress her. Lin Zhuangxuan gave a thumbs up and said, you have ambition. But, then won't you tell my sister? Why should I tell her? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes and said, no wonder there hasn't been much progress in the relationship between you and my sister. Don't boyfriends and girlfriends have to tell each other everything? Su Weifeng laughed and said, we both have independent personalities, so there's no need to say everything. Then what did you talk about on your date? Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes were already a little weird. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, we have only known each other for such a short time. We can chat about anything, and time will pass by. Brother-in-law, I think the relationship between you and my sister still has a long way to go. I really don't know when you will be able to achieve a happy ending. Just let it be. There is no need to force things like feelings. Lin Zhuangxuan said contemptuously, forget it. If neither of you takes the initiative, you will never be together in your life. Okay, let's not talk about this. Let's study the future development direction of the company. Next, if I have money, I can continue to shoot, and then I can promote it. Is it that simple? Lin Zhuangxuan smiled a little embarrassedly and said, it seems to be really simple, but I really haven't thought it through yet. I don't have any ideas for the rest for the time being, but I have 2 suggestions for you to consider. The first one is that we move to a larger office location. We are now a large company with a valuation of 50 million, but we are still working in such a small place. This is not a good thing. When we cooperate with others in the future, people will look down on us and look down on our company, which will naturally make it difficult to cooperate with them. Oh, it seems to make sense. I'll listen to you. Well, secondly, we need to recruit more people. Professionals should do professional things. Only in this way can we do better. You can't let employees be omnipotent, and you can't do everything yourself. You must learn to let employees give full play to their talents. There were only 2 people before, and it was to save money. That was my own money. I felt bad to spend more. Now that I'm spending other people's money, I suddenly feel that I can be less stingy. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, this is the benefit of financing. It will make people broaden their horizons and have a better vision when doing things. Lin Zhuangxuan gave a thumbs up and said, okay, then I'll listen to you. Su Weifeng's mobile phone suddenly rang. Seeing that it was his mother's call, Su Weifeng quickly answered it. Mom, what's wrong? Son, where are you? I was just chatting with your Aunt Wang. She has a niece who's pretty good. Look, Mom, didn't I tell you that I already have a girlfriend and I can bring her back to you in a month or 2? Why are you introducing me to someone else? Humph, I didn't think about it yesterday, but now I think about it. You must be lying to me. I'm really not lying to you. Wait a minute, I'll send you a video. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan and suddenly his eyes lit up, and he hung up the phone directly. Zhuangsun, do me a favor. What do you want to do? Lin Zhuangsun had a mischievous smile on her face. She had roughly guessed what Su Weifeng was going to do. Su Weifeng said directly, pretend to be your sister and video chat with my mother, otherwise she won't believe that I have a girlfriend. No problem. Lin Zhuangsun answered very happily. This time, Su Weifeng sent a WeChat video to his mother, and his mother answered it immediately. Mom, come here, let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend Qiao Yushan. Yushan, this is my mom. Hello, auntie. Qiao Yushan and Su Weifeng appeared in the video head to head, with a sweet smile on their faces. Really, don't just pull a girl to deceive me. Wait, you are really Qiao Yushan? Shenji exclaimed. Lin Zhuangsun smiled even sweeter and said, yes, I'm really sorry. I have always said that I would go to see you with Weifeng, but I have been busy with work recently and have no time. After these few days, I will definitely go to see you. How is this possible? How is it possible? Shenji muttered to himself, without even thinking about replying to Su Zifeng. Su Weifeng hurriedly said, Mom, you saw it this time. I have something to do with Yushan now, and I will take her back in 2 days. Okay, you guys are busy. You guys are busy. Shenji wanted to say more, but Su Weifeng hung up the video directly. Why did you hang up the video so quickly? I want to say a few more words to my aunt. Lin Zhuangsun smiled and bumped Su Weifeng with her shoulder. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, if you say too much, it will be exposed. My mother is a fan of Qiao Yushan and always pays attention to her news. Lin Zhuangsun raised her arm and put it on Su Weifeng's shoulder, saying, Auntie doesn't know about you and my sister. Su Weifeng shrugged his shoulders and said, I told her, but she didn't believe it. Lin Zhuangsun shook his head and said, oh, my sister is really something. You have met her parents, so she has to meet your parents too. This is the minimum respect. She is busy. Lin Zhuangsun said, no matter how busy she is, she can always find time for a meal. She is just not proactive. Humph, I will stay at her place tonight, and I will criticize her. Haha, that's not the case. Now that you show up, she will at least believe it. As he was talking, WeChat on his mobile phone rang. Son, quickly send me Qiao Yushan's WeChat. I want to add her. Su Weifeng was startled and said, why do you want to add her? What? Of course I want to chat with her. She's my future daughter-in-law. As a mother-in-law, I must have a good relationship with her and show more concern for her. She's so busy, how can she have time to chat with you on WeChat? I'm not stupid. I won't disturb her when she's working, but we can chat when we have time at night. Hurry up, you're such a nagging kid. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangsun, who chuckled and said, or you can give my WeChat ID to your aunt, so I can chat with her when I'm free. Su Weifeng was a little tempted. Lin Zhuangsun seemed to be easier to communicate with than Qiao Yushan. Chapter 32 promised. Lin Zhuangsun tilted her head and thought for a while, then said, then you should talk to my sister about this matter. If you add me on WeChat, it will be like a cuckoo occupying the magpie's nest. If my sister is not satisfied again, then I will do something bad with good intentions. Su Weifeng hesitated for a moment, nodded, and said, I'll tell your sister. After that, he searched for Qiao Yushan's phone number on his phone. Lin Zhuangsun could see Su Weifeng's phone next to him, and couldn't help but frown slightly. Why did she feel that Su Weifeng was not familiar with this number? When the call was made, Qiao Yushan answered the phone quickly. Su Weifeng immediately said, Yushan, Zhuangsun and I are together. I have something to discuss with you now. Why are you with Zhuangsun? I don't have anything to do today. I heard that she opened a video company, so I came to see her out of curiosity. Oh, what's the matter? It's like this. My mother has always refused to believe that you are my girlfriend. Today, she insisted on introducing me to someone, so she asked Zhuangsun to pretend to be you, and said a few words to her. As a result, my mother insisted on getting your WeChat ID. Qiao Yushan hesitated for a moment. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, I also said that you are very busy and don't have time to chat with her, but my mother insisted, and I couldn't resist. Su Weifeng is a person who can remain calm when encountering major events. No matter how difficult the person is, he is not afraid. But in this world, there is always one person that Su Weifeng can't afford to offend, and that is his own mother. Once his mother insists, no matter how many ways he has, they will not work. Okay, then give me her number. I'll add her, otherwise it would be impolite. You agreed? Su Weifeng asked in surprise. Well, isn't this normal? Okay, thank you for your help. When you have something to do, don't bother her. My mom is a bit impulsive sometimes, and you can't tell when she wants to talk to you. Su Weifeng breathed a sigh of relief. After hanging up the phone, Su Weifeng sent his mother's WeChat number to Qiao Yushan, feeling uneasy again. Why are you so polite when talking to my sister? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng with an expression of disappointment. I feel that you and her are not as natural as when you are with me. Su Weifeng smiled and said, this may be the way we get along. You guys, I'm really worried about you. Lin Zhuangxuan shook his head again. Su Weifeng stood up and said, okay, let's not talk about these things first. Come on, let's study and find a bigger office space. Lin Zhuangxuan also became excited all of a sudden. The two of them started to search on the internet with their mobile phones, and then started to call one by one to inquire. Finally, they determined two relatively satisfactory places and immediately set out to look at the house. After leaving the office, the two girls outside looked at Lin Zhuangxuan with an expectant look. They only saw Zheng Dongmei going in arrogantly and coming out covered in dust, and Chen Jiajia running out crying. They didn't know what happened. Lin Zhuangxuan stopped and showed a proud smile on her face. She said, our financing has been successful. Oh yeah. The two girls shouted excitedly. Get ready for the next work. We are about to do a big job, and besides, we will go to find a new office location now, so you don't have to work in such a small studio in the future. Oh yeah. The two girls shouted excitedly again. In less than 2 hours, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan had already decided on the location of the new company. Huaxing Daxia is a 36-story office building that was built less than a year ago. Among the office buildings in this city, it is the best in terms of location and decoration. There are only 2 office rooms on the 26th floor of Building D, and Su Weifeng and his team chose the one with more than 500 square meters. Standing in the wide hall, Lin Zhuangxuan turned around excitedly and said, I used to dream of working in such a big place. I didn't expect that it has finally come true now, and I'm one of the bosses. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan with a smile. It's just that the rent is too expensive, 150,000 a month, 1.8 million a year, and this doesn't count the office equipment we need to buy. If the company doesn't make money, it will really be. At this point, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly showed a bitter smile on his face. Anyway, the money is not ours, so we can lose it. If we lose it, just do it. You are so sincere. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng, then waved her fist vigorously and said, I will definitely do it. I will. Then Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan discussed how to decorate the company next, and what else they needed to buy. After they finally decided, it was already past 8 o'clock when Su Weifeng returned home. After entering the house, Su Weifeng saw his mother holding a mobile phone with a smile on her face. Boy, come here. You are really good. You actually hooked up with Qiao Yushan. Su Weifeng sat next to his mother and said, how many times have I told you, but you didn't believe it. Believe me, this time I believe you. His mother hugged Su Weifeng's neck and smiled brightly. This made Su Weifeng feel a little guilty. He found a girlfriend. No, he found Qiao Yushan as his girlfriend, and his mother was so happy. If she knew that the two were fake, she would chop him up. I just talked to Yushan. She said she will be free tomorrow night and will come to our house for dinner. Tell me what she likes to eat so I can prepare it. It's our first time meeting, so I must make sure she eats well. Oh, right. It's her first time coming. Do you think I should give her a red envelope? How big should it be? She is a big CEO. If the envelope is too small, she will not be impressed. Su Weifeng stared at his mother like a fool. Did you listen to me? What are you daydreaming about? Mother Shenji stretched out her hand and grabbed Su Weifeng's ear. I'm listening. Su Weifeng said quickly, but mom, we are just coming to have a meal. Do you have to make it so grand? How can it not be grand? This is the first time she's come to visit. How can we be rude? Besides, what is Yushan's status? How can she be compared with girls from ordinary families? Mom is doing this all for you. You want her to have a good impression of our family. Otherwise, why would she not be with you? If such a good daughter-in-law is lost because of me, I will cry to death. Su Weifeng suddenly felt that the matter had become a big deal, and he felt that it was a big mistake to find Qiao Yushan to be his girlfriend. Chapter 33 Zhuangsun, come and help me. After being bombarded by his mother, Su Weifeng finally ran back to his room and sent a message to Qiao Yushan directly. I'm so sorry, my mother disturbed you. I said, if you help me, I will help you. It's just mutual benefit. Now that you say that, I feel a little relieved. Well, tomorrow at 6 o'clock, you come to the company to pick me up, and we'll go together. Okay. Zhuangsun is here. I won't talk to you anymore. Thinking of his mother's nagging, Su Weifeng guessed that Qiao Yushan was also being educated by Lin Zhuangsun. After all, Lin Zhuangsun had mentioned several times today that there was a problem with their way of getting along. The next day, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangsun were busy with the new office. Not only the two of them, but also the remaining 4 people from the original company were transferred here. Lin Zhuangsun really wished he could grow a few more legs. The rent for this day was 5,000 yuan, and every bit of time wasted was money. The facilities in the office building are quite complete. There are some workstations, and there are also facilities such as desks and sofas in the separate offices. However, due to the uniqueness of their company, the hall still needs to be rearranged, and some space needs to be vacated. Then there are some filming equipment. In the past, Lin Zhuangsun had no money, and many things were just for show. Now, of course, some new ones have to be purchased. In addition, the company is expanding now, and there are definitely not enough people. They have to recruit some people, especially some artists. Of course, they don't have the strength to recruit those professional artists directly. Now they are recruiting those non-professionals who want to come to this industry. How many young men and women shoot some small videos every day, dreaming of becoming popular all of a sudden, and then reaching the peak of their lives? There are people who have dreams of performing arts, and there are many who just want to get something for nothing and take shortcuts. In short, this industry still gives many young people opportunities. When it was almost 5 o'clock, Lin Zhuangsun said to Su Weifeng, go pick up my sister quickly, don't be late. Oh, I almost forgot about it. Su Weifeng just remembered it. You. Lin Zhuangsun rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng. Haha, okay. Just as Su Weifeng was about to leave, his cell phone rang. It was Qiao Yushan who called. As soon as the call was connected, Qiao Yushan said anxiously, an important situation suddenly occurred in my company and I have to deal with it personally, so I can't go to your house for dinner tonight. I'll go. Okay then. Although this caught Su Weifeng off guard, he still chose to forgive. I promised my aunt that it would not be good not to go, so I want Zhuangsun to go to your house and pretend to be her. Anyway, we look very similar, and if we are not particularly familiar with each other, it is impossible to tell us apart. Let Zhuangsun go? Is that possible? It's okay. Zhuangsun is a smart girl. Her ability to respond is better than mine. She will definitely be able to act well in this role. I'll call her right away. Su Weifeng hung up the phone and looked at Lin Zhuangsun. Lin Zhuangsun was busy and said, why haven't you left yet? Huh? Why do you look so weird? Your sister can't come to my house today, so she asked you to pretend to be her. She will call you soon. I'll go. Lin Zhuangsun widened her eyes, and before she could say anything else, her cell phone rang. After quickly answering the phone, Lin Zhuangsun said, sister, it's not time to get off work yet, and you're calling me. Don't say these useless things. I have something, and can't go to Su Weifeng's house today, so you can pretend to be me. What? I'm pretending to be you. Are you kidding me? Lin Zhuangsun shouted exaggeratedly, then blinked at Su Weifeng. I have no choice. This happened suddenly, and I really can't leave. Besides, I have already promised Su Weifeng's mother. It would be unreasonable if I didn't go. Help me once, and I will reward you later. Reward? This is not easy. This reward? Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up, contact Su Weifeng and discuss with him what to do. Okay, you begged me with such an attitude. How can I be a sister like you, huh? After a burst of complaints and reluctance, Lin Zhuangxuan hung up the phone and then immediately said to Su Weifeng with a smile, how about it? My acting is not bad, right? Su Weifeng chuckled and said, indeed, I feel that your dream should not be to be a director, but to be an actor. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately raised his chin and said, you don't understand this. A director must have more accurate grasp of various acting skills and various characters in order to make a good movie. This is much more difficult than being an actor. Okay, then I underestimated you. Then President Qiao Yushan, should we go? Lin Zhuangxuan immediately took Su Weifeng's arm, smiled sweetly, and said, okay, Weifeng, you said you would go to your house today. This is my first visit, and I can't go empty-handed. What gift should I buy for your mother? Oh, I have to ask my sister to reimburse me for this money later. Lin Zhuangxuan was directly into the role, and the following sentence was muttered in a low voice. There were two other employees in the hall. They glanced at each other and quickly retracted their gaze. Because Zheng Dongmei mocked their relationship, Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng discussed it. They didn't say that they had a real relationship, but just partners. They called each other by their names. When the employees saw the two together, they only felt that they had a good relationship, but they didn't look like a couple. Now they suddenly saw Lin Zhuangxuan holding Su Weifeng's arm, which made them even more confused. They didn't understand, so they didn't dare to ask, and they could only keep it in their hearts. Su Weifeng went to buy some fruits, and then took Lin Zhuangxuan home. When they got downstairs, Lin Zhuangxuan was no longer so calm. She stopped, grinned, and said, can I really do this? Will I be exposed? Su Weifeng comforted her, it's okay, my mother is not a man-eating tiger, you don't have to be nervous. The first time I meet my mother-in-law, I always feel nervous. People say that old women like to make things difficult for their daughters-in-law. What if I don't handle it well, or don't perform well in some way, and your mother is not satisfied again? Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan's panic and couldn't help laughing. Absolutely not. My mother is a fan of Qiao Yushan, even a crazy fan. No matter what you say or do, she will like it very much. Oh, yes, I'm Qiao Yushan. Even if something happens, Qiao Yushan will take the blame. What am I afraid of? When he said this, Lin Zhuangxuan immediately became energetic, puffed out his chest, and walked into the building with Su Weifeng's arm. Chapter 34, Beautiful. Don't open the door yet. Standing in front of Su Weifeng's house, Lin Zhuangxuan took a deep breath and motioned to Su Weifeng to open the door. Su Weifeng chuckled and opened the door. Ah, Yushan, you're really here. As soon as the door opened, Mother Shenji rushed in front of the two of them, staring at Lin Zhuangxuan with stars in her eyes. Lin Zhuangxuan was startled. Even if she had thought of 100 scenarios when she came in, she had never thought that such a scene would appear. She stood there in a daze, completely at a loss. Su Weifeng's face darkened, and he stuffed a bag of fruit into his mother's hand, saying, Mom, can you be more reserved? Shenji's body shook, and then he immediately shouted excitedly, alive, alive Qiao Yushan, I really saw her alive, son, I'm not dreaming, pinch me. Su Weifeng's face darkened again, and he stroked his cheek and said, Mom please, this is my girlfriend, your future daughter-in-law, isn't it a bit too embarrassing for you to do this? Future daughter-in-law. Shenji's body shook, and then his face showed embarrassment in an instant, and he said, Yushan, don't blame your aunt for being rude. I don't like celebrities, I just like strong women like you. I'm your fan, and the first time I saw you, I was really a little too excited. Lin Zhuangxuan finally came to her senses, and hurriedly said, Auntie, look at what you said, I'm just an ordinary person. How can she be ordinary? How can an ordinary person be so capable at such a young age? For a company with assets of less than 5 million, you have made it over 100 million in more than 2 years. This is simply amazing. Seeing that his mother's eyes were about to sparkle again, Su Weifeng pushed her and said, let's not talk at the door, let's go in and talk slowly. His mother shouted hurriedly, don't push me, Yushan, come in, come in. Finally, they entered the living room and sat on the sofa. His mother Shenji grabbed Lin Zhuangxuan's hand, stared at her and nodded repeatedly, saying, Jun, you are so handsome. You are much more beautiful in person than on TV, or in photos on the internet. Thank you for the compliment, auntie. Lin Zhuangxuan's adaptability is really strong. At this time, she said with a smile, auntie, you must have been very beautiful when you were young. You don't look old at all now. This boss is different. He really knows how to talk. I feel so comfortable listening to him. How can he not look old? He is already in his 50s. Su Weifeng's mouth twitched. His mother was just a crazy fan. Even if Lin Zhuangxuan said she was not good, she would be so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. I'm telling the truth. If your aunt is not excellent, how can she give birth to such an excellent son like Weifeng? You are absolutely right. Fortunately, my genes are strong. If Weifeng looks like his father, his life will be ruined, and he won't be able to find you as his girlfriend. Yes, I can see that too. Weifeng does look like you. Lin Zhuangxuan said, and secretly gave Su Weifeng a mischievous look. Su Weifeng was also at a loss for words. He shook his head and didn't interrupt. He let them chat. It seems that there is an advantage to his mother's behavior. That way, she won't see the problem for the time being, and Lin Zhuangxuan can play freely. However, seeing that his mother was getting more and more excited and couldn't stop talking, Su Weifeng still coughed lightly and said, Mom, shouldn't we prepare dinner? We can talk after dinner. Ah, look at me. I was so excited that I even forgot such an important thing. Shenji slapped his thigh fiercely, stood up, and said, Yushan, sit down. I'll go cook right away. The dishes are ready. Just stir fry them. It will be ready in a while. After that, he rushed into the kitchen in a hurry. Auntie is so funny. Lin Zhuangxuan finally laughed out loud at this time, and then quickly held back and secretly glanced at the kitchen. Su Weifeng rolled his eyes and said, is this funny? This is just being confused. That's because I performed well, and auntie recognized me. Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin, extremely proud. Yes, you performed very well. It's not acting, it's performance, you idiot. Lin Zhuangxuan pinched Su Weifeng. Shenji suddenly poked his head out of the kitchen, and saw Lin Zhuangxuan pinching Su Weifeng's lower back with a look of reproach on her face. You guys chat. Weifeng, take Yushan to your room to have a look. Ah. Lin Zhuangxuan just realized that her little action was seen by Shenji, and she quickly stopped. Her face flushed. She and Su Weifeng had been very casual these 2 days, but suddenly someone saw it. She felt that this action seemed a little intimate. Shenji laughed even more happily and said, Weifeng, what are you doing stupidly? Go quickly. Su Weifeng took Lin Zhuangxuan to his room and closed the door directly. Lin Zhuangxuan clasped her hands in front of her chest, pouted her lips, and said, what do you want to do? Su Weifeng said speechlessly, what else can I do? Of course I'm afraid that my mom will see through me. Of course I know, I'm just teasing you. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately blinked teasingly, then put her hands behind her back, walked around the room, looked around, and said, your room is too simple. How can a grown man's room be complicated? Sit down. Lin Zhuangxuan said with a smirk on her face. I heard that there will be some special picture albums in men's rooms. Do you have any? Su Weifeng immediately made Lin Zhuangxuan laugh and said, haha, I'm not a little boy. I can't get those things. In addition to a bed, there is a small desk in Su Weifeng's room. This small desk was used when he was in school. It has been kept all these years. Nothing has been added since he came back. Lin Zhuangxuan sat directly on the bed, holding the bed with both hands, and shook it twice, saying, the bed is not very soft. This bed was bought when I was in high school. It's been a while. What's the matter? Do you think my family is poor? I, Qiao Yushan, am not that kind of person. I just like you. It's enough for me to make money. In the future, I will be responsible for making money, to support the family and being beautiful. Oh, what do you do? The first part of what she said was still imitating Qiao Yushan's tone, and the second part directly returned to her lively style. Haha, you are right. You take care of everything. I really have nothing to do. You should be responsible for being beautiful. Come on, Ruha, smile for me. Lin Zhuangxuan stretched out her hand and lifted Su Weifeng's chin. She was simply a beautiful female gangster. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Harmony. After a few jokes, Lin Zhuangxuan unconsciously turned the topic to the layout of the company's lobby. The two immediately started chatting seriously. Su Weifeng even took out his last pen. The two gathered in front of the desk, talking about their ideas, while constantly drawing on paper. The two chatted so seriously that they didn't even notice Su Weifeng's mother knocking on the door. Shenji originally wanted to call the two to eat. Seeing that the two had closed the door, she didn't want to disturb them, but she could hear the two talking together at the door. Although she couldn't hear what they were saying, the tone was quite normal, so she knocked on the door. But there was no response when she knocked on the door, so she turned the door open casually, and when she saw the posture of the two, she hurriedly said, "Excuse me." She immediately retreated and quickly closed the door. When she said this, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan finally heard it. Lin Zhuangxuan turned her head and saw the figure of Shenji when he closed the door, and then suddenly realized a problem. Because she was too absorbed in the conversation, she didn't pay attention to her posture with Su Weifeng. At this time, she was already lying on Su Weifeng's back with her arms on his chest, so that she could take the pen from Su Weifeng's hand and draw her ideas on paper. Standing up suddenly, Lin Zhuangxuan bumped into the bed behind her and fell directly onto it. Su Weifeng turned around quickly, looked at her embarrassed look, and couldn't help but burst out laughing, saying, "What are you doing? Are you sleepy?" Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng fiercely, blushing and said, "It's all your fault. Auntie saw me lying on your back. Now I can't wash it off, even if I jump into the Yellow River." Su Weifeng just remembered the scene just now and suddenly felt a little annoyed. He was too involved just now and didn't feel it well. However, this idea could only be hidden in his heart. He chuckled and said, "What do you want to wash? What is the relationship between you and me?" "Oh, yes, I'm your girlfriend." Lin Zhuangxuan immediately got into the role, gave Su Weifeng a wink, and said, "Why don't you help me up?" Su Weifeng pulled Lin Zhuangxuan up, and the two left the room. "Ah, it smells so good." As soon as Lin Zhuangxuan came out, she held her nose and walked quickly to the restaurant. Shenji immediately said with a smile, "You came out at the right time. I just finished cooking this dish. It's time to eat it." "Auntie, I can tell from the smell that the dish you cook must be delicious." Lin Zhuangxuan flattered her. "Haha, these are just some home cooking. I don't know if they suit your taste. Come on, sit down quickly. Come on, try the braised spare ribs I made. Weifeng has loved it since he was a child and he can eat a big plate every time. Come on, try the sweet and sour fish. I specially asked someone to catch this fish in the river. Try this Chinese cabbage. I picked all the Chinese cabbage on purpose because I was afraid that the big leaves would be too thick and you wouldn't be able to swallow it." Lin Zhuangxuan took a few big bites, then looked up and said with emotion, "Auntie, I'm not that squeamish. When I come to eat in the future, please don't make it for me like this, otherwise I will really feel bad." Shenji saw that Lin Zhuangxuan was eating happily and said with a smile, "It's okay, it's okay. A big CEO like you eats exquisite dishes in a restaurant, so we can't be bad at home. Anyway, I'm not busy at work, so I can sneak out when I have nothing to do. It's not a big deal." Lin Zhuangxuan was even more moved and said, "Auntie, you are so nice. I will come here more often in the future. But you must not treat me differently, otherwise I will feel uncomfortable." Hearing this, Shenji immediately smiled and said, "Okay, this is your first time here, and Auntie can't treat you badly. When you come more often in the future, Auntie will just make some home-cooked meals." Lin Zhuangxuan smiled sweetly and said, "Yes, home-cooked meals will be fine. I will just eat what you usually eat. I'm really not that squeamish." Shenji immediately said, "Then you must come here often for dinner in the future." "Of course. I'm afraid that if I come here often in the future, you'll be annoyed, Auntie." "How could that be?" I wish you would come here every day. Otherwise, you can live here in the future. You young people usually don't pay attention to diet. This way you can have normal hot breakfast and dinner at home." Lin Zhuangxuan blushed and turned her eyes to Su Weifeng. This was not a good response. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, "Mom, you're thinking about this too early." Shenji laughed and said, "I didn't think about this enough, but it's okay. For young people nowadays, it's not a bad thing to live together early. We will consider it later." Lin Zhuangxuan was also a little embarrassed. This topic was too sensitive. Su Weifeng kicked his mother, and she stopped discussing this topic in depth. The following meal was quite warm and harmonious. After the meal, Lin Zhuangxuan offered to wash the dishes, but Shenji immediately refused and said, "You've been so busy at work all day, how can you do such housework? Go and have a rest, and eat some fruit." Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't persuade Shenji, so she went to the living room and sat down, and whispered to Su Weifeng, "Auntie is so nice." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "My mother is like this. As long as you get the temper with her, she can give you your heart." Lin Zhuangxuan lowered her voice, put her mouth close to Su Weifeng's ear, and whispered, "I'm suddenly a little worried now. Although my sister is good at business, her act doesn't seem to be that good. I don't know if she will get along well with auntie." "Don't worry about that, just get along slowly." Su Weifeng naturally wouldn't say that this was fake, and there was no need to care at all. "How about?" Lin Zhuangxuan touched her chin and said, "I'll do the things to coax auntie later, so that she won't mess things up again." Su Weifeng squinted at her and said, "Do you really think so?" Lin Zhuangxuan said slyly, I just want to find a place to eat. I have no appetite after eating taquilla every day." "Ha, your idea is very good, then you should discuss it with your sister." "Forget it, if I discuss it with her, she will scold me to death. I will just pretend to be her secretly, to get some food and drink in the future." Su Weifeng couldn't help but smile. Lin Zhuangxuan's idea was really absurd. After Shenji finished cleaning up, he came back and chatted with Lin Zhuangxuan for a while. Lin Zhuangxuan also had a good chat with Shenji. If Su Weifeng hadn't proposed to send Lin Zhuangxuan away, his mother would have tried to find a way to let Lin Zhuangxuan stay overnight. When Su Weifeng sent Lin Zhuangxuan away, his mother glared at him with an obviously disappointed look, feeling that her son was really disappointing. His mother was creating opportunities for him, but he wasn't getting started at all. Chapter 36 Angel or Devil? When Su Weifeng came back, after sending Lin Zhuangxuan off, his mother immediately pulled Su Weifeng to chat again. "Mom, are you relieved this time?" Su Weifeng felt very tired about this matter, and said while lying on the sofa, I'm relieved. Humph, your uncle's family looked down on us last time. I said Qiao Yushan was your girlfriend, and they looked at their faces. This time, your uncle's family must be shocked. I will tell them now." Su Weifeng's face darkened, and he said, "Mom, let's wait a while. If you say it directly, they may not believe it, and you will be angry again. Besides, your method will not shock them extremely. What should I do? I have to get angry." Shenji looked unwilling. "Haha, you see, didn't we agree that we would go together when it's grandma's birthday? If you bring Yushan with you then, uncle and the others will definitely be shocked. Besides, you don't have to tell the relatives one by one. With people standing there, everyone will know what's going on. The most important thing is that it will have an effect of shocking everyone. Can you imagine how great that would be?" Su Weifeng knew his mother's character very well. If he didn't say this, she would definitely call all the relatives and friends to show off. So he had to give her a reason that she could accept, so that she would give up the idea. Mom squinted her eyes and imagined the scene, slapped her thigh, and said excitedly, "Yes, you are right. Imagine the scene. Haha. Everyone must be stunned. Absolutely awesome. Right, Mom. Pretending to be cool, telling the world. That is definitely the lowest level. We don't say anything, let others find out, and then we say lightly, it's just a small matter. Isn't that more awesome?" Yes, pretending to be cool without being seen. This is the highest realm. Now think about it. Mom's previous behavior is really too tasteless. Mom patted Su Weifeng's shoulder hard and said, "Son, you are really amazing. You can come up with such a method. You have to remind mom more in the future. Otherwise mom will be proud and forgetful. Okay. Su Weifeng grinned, thinking to himself, you still know. But he didn't dare to say it out loud. The next day, Su Weifeng came to the company early. Lin Zhuangxuan arrived earlier than him and immediately came to his side. She nudged him with her shoulder and lowered her voice and said, did auntie say anything after I left? Haha. She picked up the phone and was about to call all her relatives and friends to show off, but I stopped her. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, auntie is really interesting. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, I guess this is the first time she has made her so proud since she raised me. She actually found a CEO as her girlfriend. Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin proudly and said, that's right. It's also because I performed well and made auntie satisfied. Yes, you performed very well. You coaxed my mother so much that she can't find her way. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled again, but immediately shook his head and said, I was also carried away. My sister is not like this. Next time I go, I have to be careful. Otherwise when my sister goes, the contrast will be too great and auntie will not be able to accept it. Footsteps sounded, and some employees came to work. The company's successful financing and bright future also inspired the employees. Without Lin Zhuangxuan's words, they also took the initiative to arrive early. The two also started a new day of work. They were busy for half a day. At noon, Lin Zhuangxuan directly ordered lunch for all the employees. Everyone worked so hard, and this basic welfare must be prepared. Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng ate together in an office. There was a coffee table and a sofa in this office. The two sat on the sofa, and there were some things on the coffee table. After taking a sip of the drink, Lin Zhuangxuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, the layout is basically set. We have to start purchasing things this afternoon. Su Weifeng said, okay, let's go out in the afternoon. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately took 2 bites of food and said, then eat quickly, time is money. Slow down. This is not such a rush. Why not? The rent is 5,000 yuan a day. If we put it into normal operation earlier, it means we can earn 5,000 yuan more. Cough. Lin Zhuangxuan coughed and quickly raised her hand to pinch her neck. Look at you. You are choking. Su Weifeng shook his head helplessly and handed the bottle to Lin Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't take it at all, but shook her head vigorously. Her face was a little blue. Su Weifeng jumped up in a flash and grabbed Lin Zhuangxuan, stood behind Lin Zhuangxuan, and wrapped his hands around her lower abdomen to grab her into a fist and pulled up hard. After doing this a few times, Lin Zhuangxuan opened his mouth and spat out a piece of meat, then started coughing violently. Su Weifeng let her go, patted her back, and took some water. Lin Zhuangxuan took it and drank a few sips before she breathed a sigh of relief. I'm suffocating. Su Weifeng said angrily and amusedly, I told you to eat slowly, but you ate so quickly and didn't even chew. Otherwise, even if there was food in the trachea, it would be choked out. Lin Zhuangxuan sat on the sofa and said, yes, this is the first time I found that eating can kill people. If you weren't here, I'm afraid I would have choked to death this time. When I couldn't breathe just now, the feeling was so terrible. If I weren't here, I could have solved it myself. A normal person will have about 2 minutes of sobriety time when he knows his trachea is blocked. Don't panic at this time. Just find a chair with a backrest, press against your lower abdomen, and press down hard. The diaphragm in your body will stimulate the airflow in the lungs to rush out, and it will be able to flush out the things in the trachea. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said, you want me to do it again? This time is enough for me. I swear, I will chew my food slowly in the future. Su Weifeng chuckled and said, it seems to be a good thing to teach you a lesson. Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng again and lay down on the sofa, saying, I suddenly discovered a problem. I have known you for a few days, and you have saved my life twice and helped me solve 2 problems. It seems that you are an angel sent by God, but on second thought, I have grown up, and I have not encountered as many bad luck as I have in these few days. Brother, you are not a demon sent by hell. Do you want to kill me? Chapter 37. Unclear explanation. Su Weifeng was speechless for a moment. There was nothing wrong with what Lin Zhuangxuan said. Lin Zhuangxuan was lying on the sofa, and one of her shoes had been taken off at some point. She stretched out her foot and kicked Su Weifeng, saying, "Why are you silent? Are you an angel or a devil?" Su Weifeng grinned and said, "How should I know? You don't know. You actually don't know." Lin Zhuangxuan got angry and kicked Su Weifeng twice. Su Weifeng stretched out his hand, grabbed her little feet, and said, "My little aunt, don't you find a problem? Even if you encounter bad things, they can turn into good things. Otherwise, you can have such a big company now and become a rich woman all of a sudden." Lin Zhuangxuan touched her chin with her hand, tilted her head and thought for a while, and said, "Okay, but I think this is also very exciting and fun. Otherwise, life would be too boring. If there were no accidents, how could we make a good film? We can directly film our experiences. This idea is not bad, and it seems to be quite attractive. Then I'll let the screenwriter study it later." Lin Zhuangxuan felt that this matter seemed to be really feasible. After the two of them talked for a few words, Lin Zhuangxuan's face suddenly turned red, and her eyes became a little weird. Su Weifeng asked puzzledly, "Where are you feeling uncomfortable again? What are you doing with your hands?" Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Weifeng's eyes with annoyance in his eyes. "What did I do? I'm sorry." Su Weifeng realized that his hand was still holding Lin Zhuangxuan's foot. It would have been fine if he had just held it, but he was actually stroking it gently, so he quickly let go. Lin Zhuangxuan quickly sat up, curled up her legs, hugged her knees with her hands, and buried her face in her arms. Su Weifeng coughed lightly and said, I just did it unconsciously. I really didn't mean to offend you. I'm really sorry." Lin Zhuangxuan didn't answer or move. "Zhuangxuan, I'm really sorry. If you are angry, you can hit me a few times to vent your anger, okay?" Lin Zhuangxuan remained silent. "Zhuangxuan, my little aunt, how can you not be angry? No matter what you ask me to do, I will agree to it." Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly raised her head, stared at Su Weifeng, and said, "That's what you said." "Oh, I said it." Why didn't I see much anger in Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes? Instead, there was a kind of pride that a treacherous plan had succeeded, but she could only bite the bullet and agree. Lin Zhuangxuan said even more proudly, "Then you owe me 2 conditions. I have to save them well. I never know when they will be useful." Su Weifeng didn't care. Anyway, Lin Zhuangxuan's personality was so good that he believed it would not be difficult to complete the conditions. He smiled and said, "My little aunt, you really scared me just now. I thought you were really angry. Who asked you to touch my feet? Humph, you said you are not a foot control, but you did it secretly without knowing it. Really? I really didn't think so. I have never paid special attention to other people's feet." Su Weifeng was a little doubtful about himself and said, "Could it be that I didn't notice it before, but now I find that your feet are so beautiful and feel so good, so it stimulated my potential." Pooh. You still have potential. You can actually describe your bad taste so fresh and refined. I really admire you. If you dare to do this again without my permission, I will tell my sister." Su Weifeng said in a mysterious way, "Does it mean that if you allow me to do it?" "Yeah. I won't agree to it. Don't even think about it. Absolutely not." Lin Zhuangxuan glared at Su Weifeng fiercely and hurriedly put on her shoes, as if she was afraid that Su Weifeng would grab and touch her again. Look at you. Your eyes are so sneaky. You just keep looking at my feet." While putting on her shoes, Lin Zhuangxuan was still looking at Su Weifeng, and then she shouted. Su Weifeng turned his head away quickly. He was indeed looking at Lin Zhuangxuan's feet. He was also questioning himself, is he really a foot control? With such doubts in his mind, he naturally wanted to verify it and wanted to look at Lin Zhuangxuan's feet. This was completely a subconscious activity. Lin Zhuangxuan's feet are indeed very beautiful, with a slender and well-proportioned foot shape, and there is no trace of tanning on the skin, let alone the kind of rough skin, white and delicate. Recalling the feeling of holding it in the hand, it is indeed quite soft. But can this really prove that he is a foot control? HMPH. Lin Zhuangxuan put on her shoes and her expression relaxed. She glared at Su Weifeng fiercely and said, "I warn you again. You are not allowed to have any ideas about me or my feet in the future. Ahem. Okay. Su Weifeng rubbed his nose and said, then let's eat. Sometimes people just can't think too much about something. When you always think about this problem, you will subconsciously do something according to this idea. Especially when a person keeps giving you such a strong psychological hint, just like Lin Zhuangxuan now. While eating, Lin Zhuangxuan stretched her legs under the coffee table, as if she was afraid of being seen by Su Weifeng. With her actions, Su Weifeng naturally subconsciously thought about this, and naturally wanted to look down along her legs. This was immediately met with a wave of eye rolls from Lin Zhuangxuan, which made Su Weifeng very embarrassed. After eating, the two were ready to go shopping. When they were leaving, they happened to see Wu Lily, a girl in the company. Su Weifeng subconsciously looked at Wu Lily's feet, and this action was just caught by Lin Zhuangxuan. The two walked out, and Lin Zhuangxuan gritted his teeth and said, you still don't admit it, humph, what were you looking at when you looked at Lily just now? Su Weifeng was even more embarrassed, but suddenly he figured it out and said, Zhuangxuan, I was completely misled by you. You always say that I'm a foot control, so I have doubts about myself. Then I want to look at other people's feet to see if I have any bad thoughts, but I don't have any thoughts at all. Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin and said, humph, do you think I believe it? Is that true? I didn't stare at your feet or others' feet the other day, did I? That was because I didn't notice it. And you showed it when we went out to play that day. Su Weifeng was speechless for a while. When Lin Zhuangxuan confirmed this, he really couldn't explain it for a while. HMPH, just wait. Starting tomorrow, I will only wear sneakers and never wear flip-flops again. HMPH, and I will tell all girls in the company not to wear shoes that expose their feet. Su Weifeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, is it that necessary? Of course it is that necessary. If you can't see it, I will stop you from having this thought. I must be responsible for you and nip this bad taste of yours in the bud. Chapter 38, Venomous Old Classmate. Fortunately, when the afternoon got busy, Lin Zhuangxuan also temporarily forgot about it, which finally made Su Weifeng feel relieved. Otherwise, it would be uncomfortable to always be guarded by Lin Zhuangxuan like a thief. In addition, Su Weifeng's self-control is very strong. You always say that I'm a foot scout, so as long as he sees a woman, his eyes will never look down. Sure enough, the whole afternoon was peaceful, and the two of them also picked a lot of things the company needed. Now Lin Zhuangxuan is also rich and generous, and he will be more straightforward when buying things. In addition, the service of merchants is now thoughtful. After buying things, basically all of them are responsible for door-to-door delivery and installation. Wait until the next day, various deliveries began to arrive at the company, and Su Weifeng immediately directed the workers to start installing according to the location. Another batch of office supplies was delivered. This is the third batch of things delivered today. There are too many things and they are too complicated. There is only one worker to move the things. It is unknown when it will be finished, so Su Weifeng directly started to move them into the elevator. Su Weifeng turned his head and looked over when he felt a man stopped and looked at him secretly. A few meters away, there was a man and a woman, both wearing proper business suits and badges. They should be the employees of the building. Qiao Yushan. Su Weifeng recognized the man and walked over quickly, saying with a smile, old classmate, didn't you recognize me? Su Weifeng? You are Su Weifeng. The man looked at Su Weifeng again and shouted excitedly. Su Weifeng punched Qiao Yushan lightly on the chest and said, ha, it's me. It's been 6 or 7 years since we last met. The skinny guy back then has become stronger now. I'm not stronger at all, I'm just fatter. Qiao Yushan smiled. Oh, Su Weifeng, why are you still so touchy, like you were in school? You even stained Yushan's shirt. Don't you know how to be more careful? The woman next to Qiao Yushan took out a tissue and wiped the place on Qiao Yushan's clothes that Su Weifeng touched, with a look of disgust on her face. Qiao Yushan was embarrassed all of a sudden and said hurriedly, how can you talk like that? We old classmates haven't seen each other for so long. How can we not be excited? Su Weifeng, this is my wife. Look who this is. Su Weifeng then noticed the woman and looked at her carefully. The woman was also very young and good looking, but her chin was a little pointy and there was a kind of superiority in her eyes. Su Weifeng laughed and said, I remember now. This is the proud little princess Song Na in our class. I never thought that you could win her over. This really makes me look at her in a new light. Qiao Yushan was very proud and said, of course, I'm very capable, but I didn't show it in high school. Su Weifeng joined the army after graduating from high school, and he never went to military school, so his high school classmates were the last batch of classmates in his life. After not seeing each other for 6 or 7 years, seeing his high school classmates at this time really made Su Weifeng feel very close and excited. Song Na frowned at this time, then curled her lips and said, Su Weifeng, I remember you were a celebrity in high school. The girls in our class at that time were all close to you. I thought you must be doing better after not seeing each other for all these years. I didn't expect it. Tell me, how come you are doing so badly now that you can only be a loader? Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment and looked down at his body. He was indeed covered in dust due to moving things. In addition, there was a pile of things to be moved next to him, so it was very normal for people to think that he was a loader. Qiao Yushan said immediately, how can you say that? There is nothing shameful about being a loader. There are 360 professions, and every profession has its top talent. Su Weifeng, don't mind it. Song Na is just like that. Su Weifeng smiled and said without further explanation, it's okay, it's more true. When we were in high school, Song Na was always sharp-tongued. Song Na rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng again, shook her head and said, Su Weifeng, I'm not sharp-tongued. All of our high school classmates are doing well. Some have passed the civil service exam, some work in big companies, and some have started their own businesses. Being a loader, like you, is definitely the first one. Qiao Yushan felt that continuing the conversation in this regard would only make it more awkward, so he hurriedly said, let's not talk about this. Su Weifeng, do you have a girlfriend? Before Su Weifeng could answer, Song Na chuckled again and said, you are asking such a stupid question. Think about it, which woman is willing to be a stevedore? Which woman is willing to suffer with him? Unless the woman is blind, or the woman is really ugly. Su Weifeng couldn't help but frown. This Song Na was no longer just a sharp-tongued person. She didn't look down on him at all. She was condescending and spoke to him in a derogatory tone. But Qiao Yushan's attitude was not bad. They were classmates, so there was no need to argue with her. Song Na chuckled and said, Su Weifeng, I'm right, aren't I? You don't have a girlfriend? Haha, in today's society, men who have no ability and no money should just be single. Who said I'm ugly? Who said I'm blind? As soon as Song Na finished speaking, Lin Zhuangxuan's voice rang out beside Su Weifeng, and then she put her arm around Su Weifeng's arm, looking at Song Na unkindly. Su Weifeng had already seen Lin Zhuangxuan coming, but he didn't expect Lin Zhuangxuan to come forward at this time. He winked at her, not wanting her to make a big deal, and said, Zhuangxuan, let me introduce you. These two are my high school classmates. This is Qiao Yushan. This is Song Na. Qiao Yushan and Song Na both stared at Lin Zhuangxuan with wide eyes. Lin Zhuangxuan's appearance was absolutely amazing, and she only had light makeup. If she put on more delicate makeup, she would be a super beauty who would bring disaster to the country and the people. Lin Zhuangxuan took the initiative to extend her hand and said, hello, I'm Lin Zhuangxuan, Su Zifeng's girlfriend. After shaking hands with Qiao Yushan, she shook hands with Song Na and said, am I ugly? Song Na was very embarrassed and said, you are very beautiful. But she was wondering in her heart that a loader like Su Weifeng actually found such a beautiful girlfriend. This was simply inappropriate. Chapter 39. Your eyesight is not very good. Then am I blind? Lin Zhuangxuan asked with a smile, but there was hostility and murderous intent in his eyes. Song Na had recovered from her shock and was a little scared by Lin Zhuangxuan's stare, but after looking up and down at Lin Zhuangxuan's clothes, she had a rough idea in her heart, because Lin Zhuangxuan was also wearing ordinary casual clothes at this time, and there was some dust on the clothes. The company is now bringing in a large number of things, and when installing them, dust is also everywhere, and she naturally cannot avoid it. Song Na chuckled at this time, and her eyes showed contempt again, and she said, your eyesight is really not very good. With your conditions, you can find anything you want. At least you can find someone with good working conditions. Why bother to find a stevedore to suffer together? Otherwise, I will introduce you to a job. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't expect Song Na to say such a thing. It felt that she had a new understanding of such a sarcastic person. She said, no need. I'm very happy working with Wei Feng. Lin Zhuangxuan turned her head to look at Su Weifeng, hugged Su Weifeng's arm tightly, and then turned her head again, with a smile of intoxication and happiness on her face, and said, he is a stevedore now, or he will become a president in a while, and become a millionaire tomorrow. Song Na chuckled and said, you are really naive. If you are still in college, then your idea can be understood, but now everyone has graduated for a few years, not to mention how well they are doing. But at least he has to make a name for himself. He is still working as a loader now, so you can imagine his future development. Lin Zhuangxuan narrowed his eyes and said, then you have determined that Su Weifeng will have no future? Song Na curled her lips and said, what future can he have? I advise you to give up as soon as possible. There is really no need to waste time on such a man. Seeing that Lin Zhuangxuan's face became even uglier, Kan Lejin hurriedly pulled Song Na and said, Su Weifeng, we have something else to do. Let's leave now and talk later when we have time. After that, he forcibly pulled Song Na away. Why are you so harsh? Kan Lejin asked in a low voice. Song Na snorted and said, that's for your own good. I just want him to not come to you again in the future. A classmate like this wants to contact you because he wants your help. It's better to break up with him as soon as possible. After the two of them said this, they entered the elevator. Before the elevator door closed, they saw a girl running over quickly, coming to Lin Zhuangxuan and shouting, Mr. Lin, Mr. Lin. The elevator door was closed at this moment, and the sound from outside could no longer be heard. Kan Lejin looked at Song Na and said, did you hear that? That girl just shouted to Su Weifeng's girlfriend. Mr. Lin? She should have shouted to someone else, right? Song Na didn't pay attention. At this time, she immediately said disdainfully, Mr. Lin? How old is she? No, I saw that the girl ran up to her and shouted. She must have been calling her. PFFT, you don't understand this yet? She was deliberately acting for us. Mr. Lin? Even if she is Mr. Lin, she must be from a moving company who makes money with a little effort. Have you ever seen a CEO covered in dust? That's true. Kan Lejin thought so too. Song Na said with disdain again, I tell you, don't have any contact with Su Weifeng in the future. People like this will come back to you, either to ask you for help, or to borrow money from you. It's so annoying. In the lobby outside the elevator, Lin Zhuangxuan stomped her feet fiercely, and said to Su Weifeng angrily, Su Weifeng, why are you so good-tempered? Do we need to save face for such a person? Su Weifeng smiled faintly and said, after all, we are classmates. Lin Zhuangxuan became even more angry and said, do they regard you as a classmate? They are just afraid that you will rely on them. They are simply a snob. Su Weifeng still had a smile on his face and said, forget it, I didn't take such a big thing seriously, so don't be angry. You are too broad-minded, aren't you? You are not angry when others treat you like this. Even if you are not angry, you should have let them know your true strength now, and blow their eyes. Su Weifeng patted her shoulder and said, let's go. There is really no need to be so serious about these things. Lin Zhuangxuan said angrily, I really admire you. I'm so angry, but you don't take it to heart at all. Su Weifeng smiled, and didn't explain anymore. When a person has experienced many life and death, he really doesn't care about many things. People like Song Na are humble in Su Weifeng's eyes. How can he be on the same level with a small person like her? Seeing that Su Weifeng didn't care, Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't swallow this breath in her heart. She kept thinking that the two people also worked in this building, and there would definitely be a chance to meet again in the future. Go back and find out what these two people do. Humph, no matter what you do, you dare to look down on Su Weifeng. If you look down on him today, you will be out of reach tomorrow. Arriving at their own company on the 26th floor, Lin Zhuangxuan and Su Weifeng entered an office. Lin Zhuangxuan said dissatisfiedly, hey, I just pretended to be your girlfriend to give you face. Don't you have any appreciation at all? Su Weifeng was stunned for a moment, and smiled. If you didn't say I really forgot about it. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted and said, hey, are you okay? Am I used to me pretending to be you? You don't even have a little gratitude. This is absolutely not allowed. Okay, I'm very grateful. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded repeatedly and said, of course, the last time I pretended to go to your house, I was doing it for my sister. This time I did it all for you, so you have to appreciate it. Okay, but do you have to be so clear about it? It must be clear. Helping my sister is like throwing meat buns at a dog, which is useless. But if I help you, can't I get some benefits? Maybe it can save lives in the future. When Lin Zhuangxuan talked about saving lives, she bit her back teeth. Puchy. Su Weifeng suddenly laughed and said, you really blame me for the danger you encountered. What do you think? Anyway, you can save me. Don't expect me to remember you for saving my life. I even suspect that Zhao Shengang owes you a favor because of this. Puchy. Then I would be a jinx. Su Weifeng was even more amused. Lin Zhuangxuan's imagination was really weird. He deserved to be a director. Chapter 40 Sending Dumplings. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan were selecting materials in the office. They had posted recruitment information in the past 2 days, but they didn't expect that there would be hundreds of resumes submitted. The two wanted to select some suitable ones from these resumes for interviews. As Su Weifeng was looking at them, he said, I didn't expect so many resumes to be submitted. Lin Zhuangxuan said, that's right. The career that young people want most now is probably to be a movie star. Although we are not a big movie company, at least we can give some people the opportunity to realize their dreams. Su Weifeng shook his head and said, I don't think so. This may be the easiest way to make a lot of money and the most famous career. The most important point is that this line of work requires less effort than other companies, right? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng and said, less effort? You really take it for granted. An actor must have acting skills and some talents, and all of these require a lot of effort. Didn't you see that we have a practice room here? Those who stay here in the future will have to undergo special dance and performance training, which is definitely not an easy task. Su Weifeng said, I really don't know. I thought those actors and so on only relied on their faces. You are talking about the kind of people who only have good looks, but no other talents. However, the success of such people can only be said to be a temporary phenomenon at our current stage, and it will definitely not last long. Even for them, they have put in a lot of effort. Actors are indeed glamorous in front of the public, but others just don't know about the hardships they have suffered behind the scenes. Su Weifeng smiled and said, okay, then should we pick those with good looks or those with strong talents? Of course we should pick those with both. Of course, there are still few such people. We haven't established a relationship with the art school yet, and we didn't go to the art school specifically to recruit this time. They are all from the society, and I'm afraid it's not easy for them to have high abilities. We can just pick those who have good looks but weaker talents. Su Weifeng's cell phone rang. It was his mother calling. Weifeng, I'm making dumplings today, and I asked Yushan to come over for dinner. She said she has to work overtime at the company tonight and can't come. That's not good. She won't be able to eat a hot meal if she works overtime all the time. You can come back and bring the dumplings to Yushan. No need for that. There are plenty of dumplings outside. Just order some takiat. That won't do. How can takiat dumplings be really reliable and hygienic? Who knows if the meat and shrimp in them are fresh? Besides, you delivered them personally, and I made them. That also shows how much we value Yushan. Do you know how to fall in love? You're so old, and I still need to teach you. I still have. Mom's voice suddenly rose several degrees, interrupting him and shouting, I don't care what you have, it's not as important as falling in love. You must go and bring the dumplings to me. Okay, I'll go. Su Weifeng immediately gave in. HMPH, then hurry back. I'll make this, so you can send it over while it's hot. Mom's voice was so loud that Lin Zhuangxuan could hear what she said. At this time, she immediately said, Auntie is so nice. My sister is so lucky. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, my mom is nice, but she's too annoying. Hey. Lin Zhuangxuan also glared at her and said, what do you mean? I asked you to send a dumpling to my sister, but you're still annoying. Can you be more attentive to my sister? Su Weifeng was immediately annoyed and said, I didn't say I wouldn't go. I'll go now, and the rest is up to you. Then he slipped out. With mom at home, and Len Zhuangxuan at the company, it's really not easy to deceive people about his relationship with Qiao Yushan. When he got home, the dumplings were just about to be taken out of the pot and his mother was packing them into boxes one by one. Su Weifeng took a look and said, Mom, how much can she eat by herself? How much do you want me to bring? Shenji glared at him and said, why are you so stupid, kid? Are you my son? What's wrong with me? Su Weifeng said with a frown. What's the matter? I packed several kinds of fillings. I have to bring some of them. Besides, are you going to leave after you put down the dumplings? You have to eat with her, so you have to bring more. Su Weifeng said, she is working overtime. Who knows when she can eat? Why are you so stupid again? As a man, at this time, you have to force her to finish eating before going to work. There is no woman who doesn't like this kind of domineering man. Su Weifeng grinned and said, okay. Don't fool me, you little bastard. Tell me when you get there. Remember to talk to me when you eat. I have to ask Yushan which filling she likes. Su Weifeng was going crazy. He quickly put the packed dumplings into a bag and said, I'm leaving first, otherwise the dumplings will get cold soon. That's a bit more talkative. Remember to send me a video. Before Su Weifeng ran out, she did not forget to remind him. Su Weifeng knew his mother too well. He really couldn't fool her about this matter. If he didn't send the dumplings over, she would definitely ask Qiao Yushan. After getting in the car, Su Weifeng sent a WeChat message to Qiao Yushan. My mother asked me to send you dumplings and eat with you. This is a bit troublesome. What do you think we should do? I really want to eat dumplings. Please send them over. A few minutes later, Qiao Yushan actually sent such a message. Okay. Su Weifeng replied immediately. Qiao Yushan was willing to cooperate, so this matter would be much simpler. Su Weifeng had just thought of ways that Qiao Yushan didn't want him to go over, but now they were all useless. When the taxi arrived downstairs of Qiao Yushan's company, it was already past 6 o'clock. It was already past the time to get off work. There were people coming and going at the entrance of the company, but there were still many people walking into the company. It seemed that many people had to work overtime tonight. Coincidentally, Su Weifeng actually saw Qinlan, the girlfriend of his uncle's cousin, in the lobby on the first floor. Sister-in-law. The two of them walked past each other. They were relatives, so it would be impolite not to say hello. Su Weifeng stopped. It's Weifeng. Qinlan stopped and looked Su Weifeng up and down. Then she barely remembered and asked in confusion, what are you doing here? I'm delivering something. Su Weifeng raised the bag she was carrying and gestured. Are you delivering to Qiao? Qinlan frowned. Chapter 41 This is impossible. To Qiao. Su Weifeng was a little amused and said, no. Qinlan said directly, there is nothing wrong with delivering to Qiao. Although it is a little hard work, as long as you work hard, the income is not low. Sister-in-law does not look down on delivery men, and you don't have to be embarrassed. No. I'm here for Qiao. Qinlan interrupted Su Weifeng quickly, frowned, and said, it's okay for you to talk nonsense at home, but do you know where this is? This is the company's headquarters. If you dare to talk nonsense, the security will throw you out. Everyone here is full of respect for President Qiao. No matter who it is, if they want to slander President Qiao in this company, they will not be happy. Su Weifeng did not expect that Qiao Yushan had such a high prestige in the hearts of employees, which is also a proof of ability. Seeing that Su Weifeng had left her speechless, Qinlan said, look at you, you're not even wearing the clothes for delivery. The security guards won't let you go upstairs. Where are you delivering this? Let me tell you. Su Weifeng smiled bitterly and said, this is for the president's office. The president's office. Then I'll deliver it for you. Qinlan's eyes lit up and said, although she was also a middle-level cadre, she was only a deputy position. She usually had meetings and didn't have the opportunity to spend time with Qiao Yushan alone. Now, even if she was delivering food, it would be easy for the president to have a deeper impression of her. Su Weifeng was simply convinced. Qinlan was sure that she was a delivery man. He could only say, sister-in-law, this is it. I have to deliver this order in person, otherwise the customer will complain to me. I don't know where the president's office is. Otherwise, you can take me there. This was a good reason. Chenlan also felt good and said, okay, then I'll take you there. After all, she was a middle-level manager of the company. Chenlan could take Su Weifeng wherever he went without any obstacles. Weifeng, when you get to the president's office, put your things down and leave quickly. Don't talk too much, especially when you see the president. You must not look around. The president hates men looking at her with strange eyes the most. Okay, I won't. Su Weifeng could only agree humbly. Chenlan gave several more instructions with concern. After all, Su Weifeng said that Qiao Yushan was his girlfriend. It's okay to brag about this at home or outside, but if you brag about it in Qiao Yushan's company, you will definitely be beaten to death. Fortunately, Su Weifeng looked very serious now, which made Chenlan feel a little relieved. After getting out of the elevator, there was a small reception desk. There was a girl in her 20s with short hair, who looked smart and capable. Hello, Deputy Minister Chen. Secretary Li, did the president's office order food? No. Secretary Li immediately shook his head, looked at Su Weifeng vigilantly, and said, Deputy Minister Chen, don't you know him? Chenlan's face darkened, and she turned to look at Su Weifeng, her eyes full of bitterness, thinking, you really killed me. I knew you were just secretly in love with Qiao Yushan, so I wanted to come and take a look secretly. I was so stupid to bring him up. After a quick analysis in her mind, Chenlan shouted at Su Weifeng, of course I don't know him. This guy is so bold. He dared to pretend to be a delivery man. Secretary Li, I will call the security immediately and kick him out directly. Su Weifeng's eyes widened at once. This Chenlan really changed her face faster than turning a book, shook her head and said, I don't know you either. Yes, we really don't know each other. I will call the security immediately. Chenlan cast a grateful look at Su Weifeng, meaning that you are still kind enough to not betray me. Su Weifeng raised the bag, smiled slightly, and said to Secretary Li, I'm here to deliver dumplings to your president. What is your name, sir? Secretary Li's eyes lit up, and his attitude suddenly became much more respectful. My last name is Su. Su Weifeng said calmly. Oh, sorry, Mr. Su, the president said that you are here and asked me to take you there immediately. I was so rude just now. He glared at Chenlan and said to himself, it's all because of you interrupting. Otherwise, how could I recognize the wrong person? Huh? Chenlan was stunned for a moment. What was going on? Why did Secretary Li let Su Weifeng in? Out of instinct, she followed him in. Secretary Li immediately turned around and said to her, Deputy Minister Chen, what do you want? If you want to see the president, I have to ask for instructions first. Oh, no, I'll go down first. Chenlan stopped in a hurry and watched Su Weifeng and Secretary Li walk in. No way. Could it be that what second aunt and Su Weifeng said was true, and Qiao Yushan is really his boyfriend? Such a terrible and exciting thought suddenly popped up in Chenlan's mind. If Qiao Yushan is really Su Weifeng's girlfriend, what does that mean? This means that she and Qiao Yushan are also relatives, and they are very close relatives. Then in this company in the future. However, Chenlan immediately gave up this idea. This is impossible. If Su Weifeng is Qiao Yushan's boyfriend, how can Secretary Li not know him? She has been with Qiao Yushan for 2 years. Qiao Yushan will not hide anything from her. Chenlan did not dare to stay here for long. Even if there was no secretary at the door, she took the elevator downstairs. Su Weifeng had already entered Qiao Yushan's office. You go out. If it is not necessary, I will not see anyone within half an hour. Qiao Yushan said lightly. Okay. Secretary Li agreed, left the president's office, and closed the door directly. But she was also muttering in her heart, who is this person who sent dumplings? President Qiao has never seen such an insignificant person in the office. Could it be a relative of President Qiao? However, as a qualified secretary, Secretary Li had to suppress these doubts in her heart, and not spread them. Sit down. Qiao Yushan gestured, and then said, I have something to deal with, wait for me for 2 minutes. Okay, no hurry, you go ahead, I'll take a photo of you working, and send it to mom. Su Weifeng was not polite, sat down, took a photo of Qiao Yushan working with his mobile phone, and sent it to his mother. Mom also knew what was good for her, so she didn't send a voice message at this time, and said, "Didn't you remember what I told you? Pull her over to eat together. This is how you really care about her. Got it? I'll go pull her over now, and we'll talk about it after I'm done." Su Weifeng also added a waving arm expression after this sentence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. I'm not good enough of you. Of course, Su Weifeng would not really listen to his mother. After waiting for a while, Qiao Yushan came over. "Thank you for coming so far." Qiao Yushan sat down and was very polite. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "It's okay, it's not too far. Come and eat. My mother made it for you." In his office, Su Weifeng was still calm and composed, as if he was facing an old friend. This made Qiao Yushan even more surprised at Su Weifeng. Although the two of them were familiar with each other, the pressure on others was different in different environments. To be so calm in her office, this guy must have seen a lot of things. So many. How can I eat it? Qiao Yushan frowned slightly as she watched Su Weifeng open 4 boxes of dumplings. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I haven't eaten it either, and this box has one kind of filling. My mother has to let me report which kind of filling you like." Su Weifeng opened the lunch box, as if he was eating at home, picked up a dumpling, and ate it himself, saying, "This is full of meat filling, not bad." Qiao Yushan shook her head and said, "It's too greasy, I'm afraid I can't eat it." Su Weifeng said, "Try it, one won't be a big deal. My mother is a master at mixing dumpling fillings, and meat fillings are not greasy." Qiao Yushan was skeptical, but still ate a meat filling. At first, she only took a small bite and frowned slightly. After tasting it carefully, her brows immediately relaxed. Then she took another small bite, chewed a few times, and directly ate the remaining half of the dumpling into her mouth. "How is it? Am I not bad?" Su Weifeng asked with a smile. "It's really good. Aunt, his dumplings are really delicious." Qiao Yushan praised. "There's soy sauce and vinegar here. Would you like some? Come on." Qiao Yushan didn't hesitate. Soon Qiao Yushan was full, then shook her head and said, "I'm full." "Haha, that's not much. Today I ate a lot more than usual. If you're full, just tell my mom, so I can report to you." Su Weifeng was not polite at all, and ate the remaining dumplings directly after saying that. Qiao Yushan drank a sip of water to moisten her throat, and then sent a message to Shenji, and it was a direct voice message. "Auntie, thank you. Your dumplings are so delicious. I ate a lot more than usual." "Okay. I was afraid that you didn't like them. If you like them, I will make more dumplings when I have nothing to do in the future, and then let Weifeng send them to you." "Auntie, no need. This is too much of a bother for you." "What's the trouble?" "It's not a bother at all. My work is too light all day, and I can't wait to find something to do. If you have time in the future, come to my house to eat. If you don't have time, I will let Weifeng send it to you. Just tell your aunt what you want to eat." Qiao Yushan looked at Su Weifeng, and Su Weifeng grinned and said, "Find a way to refuse, otherwise I will deliver meals to you every day." Qiao Yushan ignored Su Weifeng and said, "Auntie, I will really feel bad if you do this." Mom immediately said, "If you feel bad, then move to our house earlier, so that I can take care of you more conveniently." Su Weifeng was swallowing a mouthful of dumplings, and when he heard this, the chewed dumplings choked his trachea, causing him to cough repeatedly, looking extremely embarrassed. Qiao Yushan's face flushed all of a sudden, and she said, "Auntie, this is too early. Haha, I'm sorry, I was impatient. You know, I'm your fan, but I didn't expect you to become my son's girlfriend. I really don't see how that brat can be worthy of you. So I'm afraid that you'll run away one day, so I'm very anxious to let you in, even if it's not a real marriage." Qiao Yushan glanced at Su Weifeng, and she felt a little indignant in her heart. It seemed that this guy never had the slightest awareness that he was not worthy of her, especially in front of her parents. He behaved so calmly. But Qiao Yushan is a CEO after all. If it were Lin Zhuangxun, she would definitely take a small revenge on Su Weifeng. Auntie, I understand, but we still need some time. Yeah, I understand. I'm just afraid that he is not worthy of you. You are a big CEO, but he has nothing to do now and just runs around outside. Auntie, you are too modest. Weifeng is also a very good person. Do you really think so? Tell me why he is good. What do you admire about him? Mom, do you chat like this? Especially looking at Qiao Yushan's somewhat embarrassed expression, Su Weifeng stroked his forehead. Qiao Yushan reacted quickly and said, Weifeng is a responsible man, and he is also very considerate. Although he doesn't have a job now, I believe that, if he wants to build a career, it will be easy for him to achieve success. Su Weifeng gave Qiao Yushan a thumbs up and said, great, you have a good eye. You actually found so many good qualities in me. Qiao Yushan said unhappily, Auntie, since you ask this, can I say you are useless? What do you mean by useless? Your parents are optimistic about me, okay. Don't worry, if you can do this, I will let your parents recognize me. Su Weifeng finished eating the dumplings, and Qiao Yushan finished chatting with his mother. Su Weifeng was about to leave, when Qiao Yushan stopped him and said, I'm afraid I'm not sure about going to your grandmother's birthday party next week. After all, we have to stay there for another day. Su Weifeng said indifferently, it's okay, my mother knows you are very busy. Our goal is to make our family believe that we are in love and not force us to go on blind dates in the future, so we can just fool around with some things. Well, but when you treat my parents, you do your best, but on the contrary, I always have all kinds of excuses, which is not acceptable. If I really can't go, I will ask Zhuangxuan to go for me. Su Weifeng thought for a while and said, let's talk about it later. Coming out of Qiao Yushan's office and passing by Secretary Li quickly showed a bright smile to Su Weifeng and memorized Su Weifeng's appearance in her heart. This man must have a special relationship with Qiao Yushan. Whether he is a relative or a boyfriend, she must respect him. Su Weifeng took the elevator downstairs and just walked out of the company's door. Chen Lan came to meet him. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? Su Zifeng asked knowingly. Chen Lan looked Su Weifeng up and down, then coughed lightly and said, have you been in the president's office? Chapter 43 Meeting Liu Jingjing again. Su Weifeng smiled and said, yes, I came to bring her dumplings, so I have to be in her office. Are you her boyfriend? Chen Lan stared at Su Weifeng's eyes. I told you this last time. Su Weifeng shrugged. Chen Lan immediately shook her head and said firmly, that's impossible. If you are her boyfriend, how can her secretary not know you? You can see it all. Haha, sister-in-law, I have something else to do. I'm leaving first. Waving his hand, Su Weifeng stopped a taxi and left directly. Huh, you still want to deceive me? Do you think that going to the president's office means you are her boyfriend? There are so many men going to the president's office today. I saw through it, right? Chen Lan muttered in her heart, and she was a little complacent, but she felt something was wrong in her heart, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. The first thing Su Weifeng did when he arrived at the company the next day was to deal with Lin Zhuangxuan's inquiry. Lin Zhuangxuan nudged Su Weifeng's shoulder with her shoulder, with an ambiguous expression on her face, and said, hey, did you date Qiao Yushan yesterday? Is there any progress? Su Weifeng said, we are doing well now, aren't we? I even sent her dumplings yesterday. Then what? Then she was so busy at work, so I went home. Are you okay? You are in a relationship. You are not her brother or her father. How can you just leave after sending food? Why are you the same as my mother? Su Weifeng stroked his forehead speechlessly and said, yesterday my mother lectured me for more than 2 hours. PFFT. Lin Zhuangxuan smiled triumphantly and said, this is called great minds think alike. I found that my aunt and I get along very well. Now the facts have proved that there is a reason for our getting along well. Our 3 views are basically the same. Su Weifeng glared and said, don't look at me like my mother, otherwise I will run away and stop working in the company with you. Lin Zhuangxuan stretched out her hand and grabbed Su Weifeng's arm, shook it gently twice, and said, okay, I won't say anything. You are my god of wealth. If you run away, Mengyang Film and Television Company will take all the money away. My dear brother-in-law, I won't say anything. The two of them worked together in the company every day these days, and their relationship was really very good. Lin Zhuangxuan sometimes had a little intimate physical contact with Su Weifeng from time to time. But this kind of physical contact was at most just an arm around each other. For Su Weifeng, who often performed missions abroad, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. The two of them made a few jokes, and then they got back to their intense work. Today was an interview. Even though Su Weifeng had experienced a lot over the years, and had been the chief examiner, those who came to him all wanted to join the Longzhou team or his mercenary organization. They were all very capable people, and basically there were no women. Even if there were women, they were extremely strong and difficult to mess with. The candidates that the company wants to interview are all beauties, and they are talented beauties. Su Weifeng is also quite curious, and must be the chief examiner this time. It was still early, so Su Weifeng changed into the clothes he had worn in the company for the past 2 days, and sorted out the mess. The interview started at 9:30, and before 9 o'clock, the interviewees had already started to come. They were really beautiful, but they seemed to have too much powder on their faces and heavy makeup, which was much different from the natural beauty of Lin Zhuangxuan. However, these are the people that the company may use in the future. When shooting videos, they will use beauty, filters, face slimming and leg lengthening effects. Even if the girl is only 3 points in appearance, she can be made 10 points in the end, and then you can attract a wave of fans. So whether they are really beautiful, or just made up, Su Weifeng doesn't mind. Ding ding ding. With the sound of high heels, another beauty came out of the elevator on the 26th floor. It turned out to be Liu Jingjing, who Su Weifeng had a blind date with at home 2 days ago. Liu Jingjing was wearing a red tight-fitting one-piece skirt with a large neckline and a very short skirt, as if she wanted to show everything that could be exposed. After adjusting her dress, Liu Jingjing raised her chin confidently. She already knew that this company was not a big one, and she had been working for 2 years, and had a fan base. She believed that with her qualifications and conditions, she would definitely be accepted by this company. In the past, she had always tried every means to attract fans by herself, but this was not as effective as having a company operate and package her. Realizing this, she especially wanted to find a company to package herself. Now that she finally had a chance, she didn't want to miss it. Be careful. Another elevator door opened, and several people carrying things walked out, almost bumping into her, which made her very dissatisfied. Su Weifeng had just gone downstairs to pick up a batch of goods. If you were not from the building, you were not allowed to enter downstairs. Hey, is it you? Su Weifeng stopped, and didn't expect to see Liu Jingjing here. Oh, it's you. Liu Jingjing looked at Su Weifeng and recognized him. She curled her lips and said, I thought Aunt Shen's son would have a similar job, but I didn't expect you to be a loader. Fortunately, I didn't agree, otherwise, I would have been embarrassed by you. Su Weifeng looked down at his clothes, and couldn't help laughing. It seemed that there was nothing wrong with him saying that he was a loader. Song Na thought so before, and now Liu Jingjing said, what are you doing here? Of course I'm here too. Of course I'm working here. You know what this is, a film and television company. People like you, if you can get into a company like this, and do some work, you can brag about it for the rest of your life. Su Weifeng had a very bad impression of Liu Jingjing. Now she was pretending in front of him again. He couldn't help but expose her lie with a bit of evil taste and said, I've been here for 2 days too. Why haven't I seen you working here? Liu Jingjing's expression didn't change at all. She snorted and said, what do you know? I went out for an event 2 days ago and just returned to the company today. Get out of the way. I'm going to work. You better be careful and don't damage our company's things, otherwise you'll be in trouble. Su Weifeng was simply impressed by Liu Jingjing's shamelessness. He continued to expose her and said, your company? I saw many people like you applying for jobs here. You're not here to apply for a job, are you? Chapter 44. Start your show. Liu Jingjing showed a trace of embarrassment on her face, but the thick powder completely blocked the blush on her face. She said, what do you know? I'm the anchor invited by this company. Do you understand? I will be the top star of this company in the future. You can just watch me become famous on the internet. A stevedore like you, don't say that you didn't have the chance to date me before. You won't even have the chance to talk to me in the future. I'd better seize the opportunity to say a few words to you now. Su Weifeng almost burst out laughing. He had never seen a woman who felt so good about herself. He shook his head and said, I don't think so. Maybe the company doesn't want you yet. In fact, I feel that your chance is really small. You'd better not go for the interview to avoid being hit. Liu Jingjing got furious and said, Bah, don't want me? I'm an anchor who already has many fans. Coming to this company is to give them face. They have to beg me. In our industry, what can a stevedore like you know? Liu Jingjing sneered again and said, I understand. I didn't like you during the blind date, so you want to retaliate against me. You also want to trick me out of here. You are really evil. She felt that she had seen through Su Weifeng's trick, and at this moment she was both proud and contemptuous of Su Weifeng. Su Weifeng shook his head and said helplessly, I have already advised you. If you don't believe it, forget it. After that, he was too lazy to pay attention to this woman, and walked into the company directly. Humph. When I become famous in the future, you will regret it even more. For a garbage loader to have the opportunity to have a blind date with me, it is a blessing for several lifetimes. With a sneer, Liu Jingjing twisted her slender waist and followed into the company's gate. At 9:25, Su Weifeng changed into clean clothes and came to the interview office. Lin Zhuangxuan was already sitting there, and Wu Lily, an old employee of the company, was responsible for arranging the interviewees. The two of them sat in the examiner's seat. Lin Zhuangxuan straightened his clothes and said, I'm actually a little nervous. Su Weifeng said casually, you are the examiner now. You are the one who can decide whether the other person can work here. You decide a person's life. You hire whoever you think is good, and don't hire whoever you think is not good. It's that kind of interviewee who needs to be nervous. Lin Zhuangxuan stuck out his tongue and said, I know that too, but this is my first time as an examiner. I'm afraid I will stutter when I speak, which will be embarrassing. Su Weifeng smiled and teased, can you be a little more promising? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled his eyes at Su Weifeng, straightened his chest again, looked at the time, and said to Wu Lily, let's start. The first person to come in was named Li Xiaoya. Her appearance and temperament were just okay, and her talent was really average. However, looking at the seriousness of her performance, the anticipation and nervousness after the performance, it was obvious that she was looking forward to getting such a job. This was the case for the next interviewee, but their talents were average, and the best one could only get 6 or 7 points, which was still far behind Lin Zhuangxuan. However, it was still very enjoyable to watch the beauties singing and dancing in front of him. After another interviewee left, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly snorted at Su Weifeng and said, you are the examiner now, not here to appreciate their performance. I appreciate their performance, which means I'm fulfilling my duties as an examiner. Su Weifeng looked at Lin Zhuangxuan with some doubts. You said it nicely. Look at yourself. Every time someone comes in to perform, you look like you are enjoying it and nodding to them with a smile. Do you really look at their abilities and levels? Su Weifeng smiled and said, I'm indeed watching. I also know that only number 3 and number 5 who came in are good. The others are very bad. But everyone has dreams. If I shake my head to show that I don't appreciate them, it will be a big blow to them. I smile and nod, looking very appreciative. At least it can give them a sense of expectation. Only when people have dreams can they live happily. You said it nicely. I think you are just looking at beauties there. Lin Zhuangxuan pouted her lips and didn't believe Su Weifeng's words at all. Liu Jingjing came to the door of the interview. She first adjusted her dress, then took a deep breath, and then knocked on the door. Come in. A man's voice came from inside. Why does this voice sound a little familiar? Liu Jingjing muttered to herself in her heart, but she didn't have time to think about it, and pushed the door open directly. Liu Jingjing held her head high, wanting to show her best side, but after taking 2 steps, her eyes fell on Su Weifeng's face, and then she screamed ah, and after that, her mouth couldn't close, and her eyeballs almost popped out of her head. What's wrong? Lin Zhuangxuan frowned. Why is he here? Liu Jingjing pointed at Su Weifeng and shouted. Lin Zhuangxuan turned her head and looked at Su Weifeng, saying, "Do you know him?" "Yes, I know him. Hello, teachers." Liu Jingjing had a smile on her face, but she secretly complained in her heart. She never thought that Su Weifeng was actually the interviewer here. Not to mention that when the two of them were on a blind date, she looked down on Su Weifeng. Just now at the elevator entrance, she was making a lot of gossip, which definitely offended Su Weifeng. Her mind was also quickly judging the current situation. Su Weifeng's parents knew her family. When they were introduced, she knew that Su Weifeng's family was very ordinary, so they definitely wouldn't have so much money to open such a film and television company. And from the way she came in and talked, it was obvious that the beautiful woman Lin Zhuangxuan was the one who had the final say. Su Weifeng either didn't have much say, or came to the company earlier, and definitely didn't have much power in this company. Lin Zhuangxuan nodded and said calmly, "Then please show us your talent." Okay. Liu Jingjing took a deep breath and started her performance. Su Weifeng looked at Liu Jingjing's performance and couldn't help feeling very funny. This woman had a lot of scenes when she sang. She pouted and acted cute and even made a provocative move. Just as he was watching it interestingly, Su Weifeng suddenly felt a pain in his thigh. He looked down and saw Lin Zhuangxuan's hand pinching his thigh fiercely. At this time, Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes were on Liu Jingjing, and she didn't look at him at all. Su Weifeng couldn't pull her hand away at this time, so he could only endure the pain, pretending to be indifferent, and continue to appreciate Liu Jingjing's performance. Then he found that Lin Zhuangxuan's little hand was pinching harder and harder, and it was twisted to 360 degrees. Chapter 45, Thick Skin. Su Weifeng thought that he could just hold it in, but Lin Zhuangxuan's little hand had no intention of stopping, and it twisted harder and harder. Su Weifeng suddenly realized that the less he showed, and the more he acted as if nothing had happened, the angrier Lin Zhuangxuan would be, so she would pinch him harder. Although this did not cause any harm to him at all, it was really painful to have her pinch him all the time. However, he could not show anything in front of Liu Jingjing, so Su Weifeng could only secretly reach out his hand and gently pat the back of Lin Zhuangxuan's hand, as if begging for mercy. But Lin Zhuangxuan had no intention of letting him go, which was obviously a lack of sincerity, so Su Weifeng had to hold her hand and gently pinch it. Lin Zhuangxuan's hand suddenly froze, and then it was retracted in a flash. Liu Jingjing's performance was over at this time, and Lin Zhuangxuan said directly, "Okay, you go back and wait for notification." Liu Jingjing hurriedly said, "Teacher, I have other talents. I have been an anchor for 2 years." Lin Zhuangxuan waved his hand lightly and said, "It's okay now. I will notify you tomorrow." Liu Jingjing had no choice but to bow and walked out of the office, but before leaving, Liu Jingjing looked at Su Weifeng again and threw a seductive look at him. Su Weifeng shuddered involuntarily. This seductive look was so sudden that he was completely unprepared. "Su Weifeng, what's going on between you and Liu Jingjing?" As soon as Liu Jingjing left, Lin Zhuangxuan immediately gritted his teeth and questioned Su Weifeng. "She just had a blind date with me once, and then we just disliked each other." Lin Zhuangxuan snorted and said, "Disliked each other? Then she kept winking at you just now. Did you think I couldn't see that? Also, when you looked at her just now, she clearly looked very involved. I think her performance was really interesting, and she was really coquettish enough. Such a performance might also attract some otakus. Don't even think about it. I would never want a woman like this to work in the company. Humph, otakus wouldn't like such women. I warn you, you have my sister. If you flirt with other women again, I will definitely tell my sister." I wouldn't want her either. This woman has a very bad character. Even if our company is for making money, we must not hire people with bad character. Very bad character? Yes, after the interview, I'll tell you about the blind date process. It's very weird. That's more like it. Lin Zhuangxuan let Su Weifeng go. At 11:30 in the morning, after interviewing all the applicants, Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan exchanged opinions and basically decided to keep 6 people. When seeing Liu Jingjing's name, Lin Zhuangxuan asked about the blind date between the two. Su Weifeng also roughly recounted the process of that day, which made Lin Zhuangxuan sneer and said, "Such a woman is too materialistic, humph, but I think she is really stupid. If she knew you are so powerful now, she would definitely not say such a thing." After a busy day, Su Weifeng returned home at around 6 o'clock. The meal was ready and his mother was waiting for him to eat together. Su Weifeng still enjoyed this kind of life. Even if the food was not some delicacies, but just some ordinary home-cooked dishes, there was a special warm feeling. Just after finishing the meal, there was a knock on the door. Su Weifeng went over to open the door, and saw Liu Jingjing and her daughter. "Weifeng, you are at home. I was afraid you were not at home." Liu Jingjing immediately smiled, and her voice was so sweet that it made people's bones numb. Su Weifeng felt his scalp tingling and asked, "What's the matter?" Liu Jingjing said directly, "We just came to visit." Su Weifeng's mother, Shenji, came over at this time, and saw the two of them. She frowned slightly, but still smiled and said, "Come on, sit inside." Su Weifeng really didn't want to pay attention to them, but they were his mother's colleagues, and it wouldn't be good to make things too awkward, so he could only let them in. Liu Jingjing did not sit down at this time, but threw another coquettish glance at Su Weifeng and said, "Let my mother and aunt chat. Let's go into the house and chat for a while." Su Weifeng hurriedly said, "No, let's chat together." Shenji also coughed lightly at this time, and said, "That's right. It's more lively when there are more people chatting." Liu Jingjing was a little embarrassed, but her face was really thick. At this time, she smiled and said, "Aunt Weifeng, after the last blind date, I went back and thought about it carefully. I feel that we are quite suitable." Su Weifeng shrugged and said, "I don't have a mansion or a luxury car. If you don't have it, you can buy it when you make money later." Liu Jingjing said immediately. Su Weifeng snorted and said, "But I have to be filial to my parents. I have to come home for dinner or something when I have nothing to do in the future." Liu Jingjing immediately said, "Then I will come back with you. Being filial to your parents is a virtue." Su Weifeng really admired Liu Jingjing at this time. How could this woman be so thick-skinned? Moreover, she knew that Su Weifeng was targeting her, but she could still face it calmly. It seems that, in order to become an internet celebrity and to go to the company, she really didn't care about her face. If Su Weifeng hadn't been concerned about the relationship between his mother and his colleagues, he could have directly driven her away, but now, she was really a little overwhelmed. Such thick-skinned, even completely shameless people are often the most difficult to deal with. At this time, Shenji stood up and said, "I'm sorry. Our family is very traditional, and we have high requirements for our daughter-in-law. Although we don't require the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, the most basic filial piety is also necessary. We don't require our son to always come back to see us, but if our son wants to come back, then the daughter-in-law can't control it." Liu Jingjing hurriedly said, "Auntie, I was wrong about this matter. I have deeply reflected on myself. We don't even need to buy a wedding house when we get married. We will live with you directly." Shenji smiled and said, "That's not necessary. The most important thing is that you have missed the best opportunity. Our Weifeng now has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend, well, the conditions are really good in all aspects. I'm very satisfied." Su Weifeng secretly gave his mother a thumbs up. At the critical moment, his mother came out to stand up, which was more useful than his words. Shenji's words were completely dead. Liu Jingjing and her mother were speechless all of a sudden. The two looked at each other, and it seemed that they were not too disappointed, as if they had already expected such a situation. Chapter 46 Mom is domineering. Under normal circumstances, Liu Jingjing and her daughter should have turned around and left at this time, but Liu Jingjing was really thick-skinned. She bit her lip, looked at Su Weifeng, and said, "Even if we can't be in love, we are at least acquainted. Can you do me a favor?" Su Weifeng said directly, "I'm sorry, I'm just an ordinary employee in that company. I showed up at the recruitment today, just to make up the numbers. Whether I can use you, is not for me to decide." Liu Jingjing suddenly felt some hope in her heart. She offended Su Weifeng, but in fact she was afraid that Su Weifeng would not use her. She hurriedly said, "What does President Lin mean?" Su Weifeng looked at Liu Jingjing and said slowly, "She probably doesn't think highly of you. You'd better not have any hope." She doesn't think highly of me? Liu Jingjing stood up suddenly, pointed at Su Weifeng and shouted angrily, "This must be your fault, right? I have so much experience in live broadcasting, and I have so many fans. Among those applicants, I can definitely rank high. Why don't you use me?" Su Weifeng said calmly, "You may have some ability, but our company is not only about ability. Character is also an important assessment standard. In this regard, you do not meet the requirements of our company. You are deliberately taking revenge." Liu Jingjing gritted her teeth, looking like she wanted to swallow Su Weifeng. Liu Jingjing's mother hurriedly said, "Shenji, we have been colleagues for many years. Can you help me? Jingjing really wants to go to that film and television company." Shenji shook her head and said, "We are also old sisters. There are some things I don't want to say, but now I have to say that you are really a bit of a failure in educating children. It's okay for a person to be more materialistic, and it's not wrong for a person to use some means to become famous, but if he doesn't even have the most basic bottom line of being a human being, then it's really not good." Liu Jingjing's mother blushed with shame. Liu Jingjing burst into tears and said, "I will change in the future. Su Weifeng, Aunt Shen, please, just hire me. I really need this opportunity." Su Weifeng said lightly, "It's useless for you to say these now. Wait until one day, when you really make me feel that you have changed, you can come to our company to apply for a job. Sorry, I still have some work to do, so I won't accompany you." After that, Su Weifeng went straight back to his room. Outside, Liu Jingjing was still begging Shenji, but Shenji's mother was definitely a woman who could handle things. Her son had made a decision, so she would not embarrass her son, so she was also determined. Liu Jingjing and her daughter could only leave helplessly in the end. Shenji entered Su Weifeng's room, squinted his eyes, with a thick smile on his face, patted Su Weifeng on the shoulder, and said, "Son, this is amazing. You really make your mother proud." Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "Mom has to step in when there is something. If it weren't for Mom, I'm afraid I would have no choice but to throw out such shameless people. This is a small matter, but kid, this time Mom is really proud." You know Liu Jingjing's mother, although she and I are ordinary employees in the unit, her husband is still able to make a lot of money, so he always shows off in front of me. Now I don't see what she has to show off. Her daughter has to ask my son for help when looking for a job. By the way, you actually set up a film and television company, awesome boy. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "It's just two friends trying it together. And we are not making those kind of TV series and movies, just some short videos. We don't know if we can make money yet. No business is 100% profitable. We are not afraid of losing money. Dad and Mom have saved some for you. If you want to use it, just tell Mom. If you have more, there are still 500,000 or 600,000. Su Weifeng gave a thumbs up and said, "Mom is really rich. That makes me feel relieved." Shenji patted Su Weifeng's shoulders twice and said, "Ha, that's right. No matter what time it is, Mom is your strongest backing." In the next few days, Su Weifeng and Mao Zuan's company had a new change every day. The newly recruited employees are now also involved in the layout and arrangement of the company. Anyone with a little bit of calculation should understand that being diligent and doing more work at this time will definitely leave a good impression on the boss. Although this company looks new, it is obviously strong. It can be seen from the fact that the company rents such a large office. In addition, there is another most important thing that everyone values. This company has shares in Mingyang Film and Television Company. Mingyang Film and Television Company is one of the top companies in the entire film and television industry. If you can get financing from Mingyang, it means that you will have the opportunity to use this small company as a springboard and eventually become an artist of Mingyang Company. That would be a real success. Lin Zhuangxuan didn't want to talk about the financing of Mingyang Film and Television. She felt that this financing was really a joke. It was just a favor from Su Weifeng, not an endorsement of her company by Mingyang Film and Television. However, Su Weifeng still convinced Lin Zhuangxuan. No matter what the purpose of Mingyang Film and Television's investment was, now that the investment had been obtained, it must be done, and it must be done well. With such a good endorsement from Mingyang Film and Television, why not? As long as Mingyang Film and Television is mentioned as a shareholder of the company, it is itself an excellent publicity effect. And the facts have proved that Su Weifeng's opinion is very correct. At least after the new employees knew about this relationship, they were really motivated. None of them were lazy, even if they were doing rough work now, which had nothing to do with performing arts. In addition, in the new recruitment, such as screenwriters, photographers and other talents, there are actually some strong people who come to apply for the job. The level of the artists who come for interviews in the later period is higher. Today is the last day. It was already past 8 o'clock in the evening. The employees in the company had already left work. Lin Zhuangxuan looked around in the company and said with a smile, "Yes, tomorrow is the official start of work." Su Weifeng nodded with a smile. Today, the company has really moved to a new home. Everything has been arranged. Tomorrow, the company will start to operate officially. Lin Zhuangxuan looked at the spacious hall, the workstations, and the many professional shooting equipment, plus the separate shooting rooms, and said, "I feel like I'm dreaming. So soon, I will realize my dream." Turning around, Lin Zhuangxuan looked at Su Weifeng, and Lin Zhuangxuan's eyes slowly turned red. Chapter 47. Silencing. What's the matter? Are you so excited that you want to cry? Su Weifeng laughed and teased. I'm not. Lin Zhuangxuan raised his chin, then pointed at the wall and shouted, "Oh my, why is it dirty?" On the wall facing the door, there are 4 large gold-plated characters, Jiaxuan Film and Television. This was when Chen Jiajia and Lin Zhuangxuan were working together. One of them took a character from his name, and Chen Jiajia withdrew. Lin Zhuangxuan originally wanted to change the name of the company to Fengxuan or Weixuan. However, changing the name requires very complicated procedures, and the financing side also needs to be handled. So for the time being, the original name is still used. However, these large characters, but they are remade, are still quite impressive. Su Weifeng also saw some marks on the word. Although it is not very obvious, it does not seem to be very beautiful. No, it has to be wiped off. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately moved the chair. Su Weifeng smiled and said, "You should take a break." "I'll do it." Lin Zhuangxuan insisted. No, you men don't work carefully. I don't believe you. I'll do it myself." Su Weifeng couldn't beat her, but men are definitely not as good as women at doing this kind of small detail work. The office building has a very high ceiling. It is nearly 4 meters from the ground to the ceiling. The words are hung very high. In addition, the dirty places are at the top. Su Weifeng directly dragged a desk over and put a chair on it so that Lin Zhuangxuan could wipe the dirty places. Su Weifeng held the chair from below, fearing that Lin Zhuangxuan would fall. However, Lin Zhuangxuan wiped it twice with a rag, and her feet were still a little shaky. She said, "Weifeng, you hold my legs, otherwise I'm a little scared and can't use my strength." "Okay." Su Weifeng agreed and grabbed Lin Zhuangxuan's calf with one hand. Lin Zhuangxuan yelled, No, I'm not sure if you can do this." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm very strong. This hand is enough to ensure your safety. I know you are strong, but I'm not sure. You hold my legs." Lin Zhuangxuan lowered her head and pouted. She was a little dizzy at heights. One of the reasons she wanted to go rock climbing was to overcome this defect. Okay. Su Weifeng shook his head, holding the chair with one hand and holding Lin Zhuangxuan's calves with the other hand. "Hold tight." Lin Zhuangxuan said again, "You guys have no leg control except for foot control, right? PFFT, can we not talk about this?" Su Weifeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Lin Zhuangxuan chuckled and said, "Speaking of this, suddenly, I feel that you haven't had this problem in the past few days." Su Weifeng said helplessly, "I've said it a long time ago that I don't have this problem, but you don't believe it and have to make up all kinds of things in your mind." Okay, if you don't behave like this again in the future, then I'll believe you," Lin Zhuangxuan said, and began to wipe the dirt on it. After wiping it a few times, Lin Zhuangxuan said, "See if it's wiped off." Su Weifeng looked up and said, "It seems to be gone." "Step back a few steps and look at it from the angle I just saw. Then you come down first." "I won't move yet. It's okay. You look for the dirty places so I can continue to wipe it." Su Weifeng didn't insist and said, okay, let me see. He stepped back 10 steps and looked at it from that angle, saying, there is still a little mark on the top stroke of the word shadow. Okay. Lin Zhuangxuan immediately reached out to wipe it, wiped it twice, and said, how is it? Is it clean? Clean. Su Weifeng replied casually, oh, that's good. Ah, why did you let me go? Lin Zhuangxuan lowered her head and suddenly exclaimed. Her body suddenly shook and she fell down. Su Weifeng's face turned black. Lin Zhuangxuan was speechless. She had clearly asked him to leave just now, but now she seemed to have just discovered it. Could this girl have done it on purpose? But looking at the way Lin Zhuangxuan fell, her hands were frantically grabbing, and she was screaming. It was obvious that she was really scared. But he couldn't care less. He definitely couldn't let Lin Zhuangxuan get hurt. He rushed over into steps. But after all, he was a little far away. No matter how fast he was, when he reached Lin Zhuangxuan's side, Lin Zhuangxuan was about to fall to the ground. Su Weifeng made a leap and rushed over to hug Lin Zhuangxuan, then hugged her and rolled around twice, which resolved the force of the fall. Ah! Lin Zhuangxuan instinctively hugged Su Weifeng hard and kept screaming, hey, it's okay. Su Weifeng patted her back and tilted his head to the side. Lin Zhuangxuan's voice was very sharp, and she shouted into his ears, and it felt like her eardrums would be broken. Stop shouting. Su Weifeng freed his hands and pressed Lin Zhuangxuan's face on both sides. Ah! Lin Zhuangxuan's shouting finally stopped, and then she looked at Su Weifeng in a daze. Su Weifeng said unhappily, are you okay? You didn't fall, and you shouted so loudly that the security guards came and thought I did something to you. You, what are you doing now? Lin Zhuangxuan asked vaguely, her mouth was squeezed and pouted. Su Weifeng then remembered that he was lying on Lin Zhuangxuan's body. He quickly stood up, and by the way, he also hugged Lin Zhuangxuan and stood up and said, I came to pick you up. Lin Zhuangxuan gritted her teeth and said, HMPH, why are you still lying on me and can't get up? You have bad intentions and just want to bully me. I will tell my sister. Su Weifeng said unhappily, girl, you can't say such things casually. If I'm really a bad guy and really want to do something to you, then you use such words to threaten me, which will only put you in extreme danger. You don't want to kill me to silence me, do you? Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes and pouted her mouth even higher. Huh, do you think bad guys won't do this? Many cases happen in this way, but you're going to be a director. You can't fail to understand the mentality of this kind of person, right? Lin Zhuangxuan blinked and said, to be honest, I'm not sure about this, but after hearing what you said, maybe when we shoot some crime solving or criminal investigation movies in the future, we will have one less consultant. You're looking more and more like a qualified capitalist. I was forced to do this. Huh. We went up the mountain together, so we have to share the happiness and the hard times. As if to express the atmosphere of the Liangshan heroes, Lin Zhuangxuan stretched out his arm and hugged Su Weifeng's neck, almost holding a big bowl of wine in his hand. Chapter 48 Terrified. Qiao Yushan is really busy at work. In addition to work, she is also overwhelmed by some social events. Today is another business cocktail party, and this cocktail party is organized by an industry alliance. Everyone is in the same industry or related to this industry. In this way, everyone who attends such a cocktail party can meet both supply and demand, and does not have to go out to find customers. Whether it is a large company or a small company, it is a very good opportunity. Qiao Yushan participated in it herself, and also brought 2 middle-level managers in the company, hoping to find better cooperation opportunities here. In addition to some big company bosses like Qiao Yushan, there are also some small companies participating in this cocktail party. For these small companies, it is a rare opportunity. If they can reach a cooperation with a large company, it may make their small company have a qualitative leap. Songna may have a sharp tongue and look down on others, but she looks down on those who are incompetent. But she can be servile to those who are competent and even go to great lengths to please them. Therefore, she is doing well in the company. The company's leaders also want to promote her, and she happened to have the opportunity to attend this cocktail party. Songna's company is not big, and its assets are only about 10 million. She knows that the people here are very important. She is full of smiles. No matter who she walks in front of, she will first bow to the person and then hand over her business card with both hands. If Su Weifeng saw it, he would never believe that this is his high school classmate, and he would not believe that it is the little hot pepper with a very sharp tongue. Through tireless efforts, Song Na finally got in touch with a small manager of a small company. The guy's name is Li Qiansheng. He feels that Song Na is pretty good, and coupled with Song Na's intentional flattery, he can't help but feel a little flattered. So he started chatting with Song Na. Song Na clinked glasses with Li Qiansheng and said, "Manager Li, you are really knowledgeable. There is nothing in our industry that you don't know." Li Qiansheng smiled modestly and said, "I've just been in this business longer, so I know more. If you want to say who is doing well, you have to look at Lin Feng Company. 2 years ago, their company was similar to mine, but in just 2 years, their assets have exceeded 100 million. Judging from the current momentum, I'm afraid that the amount will double this year. I'm so envious of them. Lin Feng Company is so powerful." Song Na also knew about Lin Feng Company, but had never had the opportunity to come into contact with it before. Li Qiansheng nodded vigorously and said, "That's right. The person I admire most is their boss. She is only 24 or 25 years old, but she has achieved this level with a small company. She is simply a genius in the business world." Song Na also said with longing, "If I had the chance, it would be great to meet the boss of Lin Feng Company. She is here too, but she is with those big guys. We have to wait until they have finished chatting before we can find a chance to hand over a business card or something." Which one is? Song Na glanced at the people where the big guys gathered. Li Qiansheng's eyes showed admiration, and he said, "She is so easy to recognize. She is the youngest and the most beautiful one." Song Na looked over there. There were basically all men there. There were 2 women, but one of them was very old and the other had her back to her. Just looking at the back, one could already make people yearn for her. She should be the president of Lin Feng Company that Li Qiansheng mentioned. Oh, then I'll have to take a good look at her later. This woman, Song Na, was really good at scheming. She had been hanging around there, and when these big guys began to separate, she immediately stepped forward and came directly to Qiao Yushan and said excitedly, "Hello, President Qiao, I'm Song Na from Hua King Company. I hope President Qiao will take care of me in the future." Qiao Yushan smiled and nodded, took the business card handed over by Song Na, and said, "You're welcome. As long as both parties have something suitable, there is still a chance for cooperation." Song Na was staring at Qiao Yushan at this time. Her face became extremely horrified. Qiao Yushan frowned and said, "Assistant Song, what are you doing?" She had already looked at the name tag. Song Na was the assistant manager. Song Na took a step back and stammered, Boss Qiao, I'm so sorry. Last time, I looked down on you and was disrespectful to you. Please forgive me. Don't take it too seriously. Qiao Yushan was stunned for a moment, and then she thought that Song Na must have recognized the wrong person. She must have mistaken her for Lin Zhuangsun. However, she felt a little dissatisfied in her heart. She didn't know why Lin Zhuangsun had a conflict with her. This girl didn't do anything serious all day. It was really a headache. Song Na looked at Qiao Yushan frowning, and she was even more scared. If she offended Qiao Yushan, with Qiao Yushan's status, their company would have no good days in the future, and the boss of her own company would definitely skin her alive. Boss Qiao, I was really wrong. I shouldn't have looked down on Su Weifeng. I was blind, and didn't see how good Su Weifeng was. Please don't make a fuss about it for the sake of Su Weifeng being a classmate. Su Weifeng, your classmate? Qiao Yushan felt that she had figured it out, but now she was suddenly confused again. Yes, we were high school classmates. When we were in high school, we had a good relationship. When Song Na said this, she was also not confident. She looked down on Su Weifeng and was afraid that this high school classmate would come to ask her for help. Now that she saw that Su Weifeng's girlfriend was so powerful, she wanted to talk to him about her classmate relationship. Qiao Yushan was really not afraid of others knowing about her relationship with Su Weifeng. The more people knew about her relationship with Su Weifeng, the fewer people would want to take advantage of her, and it would also make her parents feel at ease. So at this time, she didn't object and said, "Oh, we are classmates, and it's over. But I have always been clear about public and private matters. I still hope that your company can have something that is enough to impress me." This is a very formulaic answer, which is basically flawless. Song Na hurriedly said, "Thank you, Mr. Qiao. Thank you, Mr. Qiao. Mr. Qiao is indeed a generous man. I will cherish the friendship between classmates in the future. Well, let's talk about it later. When we have time, I'll go over there and take a look." Qiao Yushan raised her wine glass and gestured. "Mr. Qiao, you are busy. Mr. Qiao, you are busy." Song Na hurriedly stepped aside. Qiao Yushan held the wine glass and chatted with the people here from time to time, and then she was thinking about a question in her mind. It is true that Song Na is Su Weifeng's classmate, but she said that she had offended her, but it was definitely the first time she met Song Na, which means that she offended Lin Zhuangxun, which means that when Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxun were together, Song Na offended them. What did these two guys do together? Qiao Yushan couldn't help but frowned. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. You must report to me from now on. After the cocktail party, Qiao Yushan called Lin Zhuangxun directly. Lin Zhuangxun and Su Weifeng had not left the company yet. Lin Zhuangxun curled her lips and said, "My sister must be up to no good. It's just a phone call, isn't that normal? Her time is so precious, she never has time to chat with me. There must be something wrong." After the call was connected, Qiao Yushan asked directly, "Zhuangxun, have you been with Su Weifeng these days?" Lin Zhuangxun immediately said with a smile, "What do you mean by asking this? Are you afraid that I will steal your brother-in-law?" As she spoke, she had already turned on the speakerphone. Qiao Yushan said, "Don't be silly. Today I met a classmate of Su Weifeng, named Song Na. Oh, I know this person. My brother-in-law and I happened to meet her that day. This woman is not a good person. She is so mean. I was so angry just listening to her. Then she pretended to be you and said a few mean words to her. When she saw you, did she get scared and her legs went limp?" Qiao Yushan said with some dissatisfaction, "Don't always cause trouble outside, especially in my name. If you cause any trouble, it will have a lot of bad effects on my company. Sister, what you said is very hurtful. I look like you, but that's not my decision. But I'm also an independent individual. What I want to do is my own business. I can't always consider you for everything, right? What nonsense are you talking about? I never care what you do, but you can't go out and cause trouble in my name. I know. I help my brother-in-law, but that's also helping you. You don't appreciate it at all, and you blame me later. I really don't know if my brother-in-law still has any status in your heart. Ahem." Qiao Yushan was choked by these words, and she said unhappily, "You don't have to worry about what's going on between me and her." "Oh, that's what you said. In the future, it's better not to use me for your affairs with your brother-in-law. You stinky girl, you still dare to threaten me. Are you not thinking it over?" Lin Zhuangxun said with a smile, "I dare not threaten you, but when I think about how busy you are, if your brother-in-law's mother invites you to dinner again, or if your brother-in-law needs you to come forward for something, you'd better not let me come for you. Okay, I surrender to you, but in the future, if you do anything in my name, or if you encounter anything with Su Weifeng, you must notify me in advance, otherwise my response will be very abrupt. Got it? I will report to you if there is anything between me and my brother-in-law in the future." After the two finished the call, Lin Zhuangxun curled her lips and said, "Did you hear that? You made me take the blame for your affairs. Is there any justice in the world?" Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I didn't blame you. HMPH, if you blame me, I'll really get angry." Lin Zhuangxun pouted, then looked Su Weifeng up and down, frowned, and said, "That's not right. Why didn't my sister call you just now?" Su Weifeng chuckled and said, "For this kind of thing, why doesn't she ask you clearly instead of questioning me first? That's not right either. It seems that I haven't heard her call you in the past few days." Do you think I have time to talk to her on the phone, or does she have time? Su Weifeng shook his head and said, we just chat on WeChat for a while, before going to bed at night. I've never seen you guys fall in love like this, really. Lin Zhuangxuan couldn't help, but shook her head. Okay, don't worry about what happened between us. We'll be opening tomorrow. Are you really not going to tell your sister? No, I won't tell you. Lin Zhuangxuan raised her chin, clenched her fist, and said, if I tell you now, it's because of your financing, and the favors of Mingyang Films. It has nothing to do with me. My sister will blame me even more, so I must make achievements, then tell her, and then tell my family. Su Weifeng said, okay, then we'll be low-key, and won't invite anyone. Yeah, low-key in life, high profile in work, wait until the film we shoot becomes popular and wins an award, then surprise them. As he was talking, Su Weifeng's WeChat also received a message from Qiao Yushan. In the future, you must notify me of anything with Zhuangxuan. Lin Zhuangxuan tilted her head and peeked at Su Weifeng's phone. Su Weifeng smiled and said, see, your sister has also started to scold me. Lin Zhuangxuan took a look, then laughed and said, then I feel balanced. Then he stopped peeking. Su Weifeng replied directly, I will notify you when I pretend to be you. There is no need to pretend if I'm not pretending. Qiao Yushan did not think much about it and did not reply anymore. Su Weifeng and Lin Zhuangxuan carefully checked the company again and confirmed that there were no more problems. Then they went home to rest. The next morning, Su Weifeng came a little earlier than usual. Su Weifeng's life in recent years is indeed very exciting, but this kind of stable working experience is the first time. In addition, this is also the first time he has started a business. There is also a sense of freshness. At least there is something to do on this day, and it will not make people bored. As soon as he entered the door of the building, two people came to meet him. It turned out to be Song Na and Qian Lijun. Good morning. Su Weifeng greeted with a smile. Seeing Su Weifeng's smile, Qian Lijun and Song Na both blushed. Song Na gently pushed Qian Lijun with her shoulder. Qian Lijun opened his mouth, but smiled bitterly, not knowing how to speak. Su Weifeng knew why the two of them were looking for him, and said with a smile, my two old classmates, you don't think of me as your strict old class teacher, do you? Su Weifeng's joke finally made the two of them feel a little more natural. Qian Lijun smiled bitterly and said, Su Weifeng, that day Song Na and I. Su Weifeng patted Qian Lijun on the shoulder and said, it's just a joke between classmates, what's the big deal? Qian Lijun's face turned even redder, and he said, you still care about the friendship of classmates, but we are too realistic. I'm really embarrassed to come to you. Song Na also blushed and said, Su Weifeng, I apologize to you. I hope you. It's okay. The relationship between us as classmates can never be erased at any time, but to cooperate with Yushan's company, I think we should still distinguish between public and private. I will not give her any special care, just because we are classmates. I hope you can understand. Chapter 50, Straight Man. Song Na was already grateful that Su Weifeng could say this. She was just afraid that Su Weifeng would hate her and say something bad about her in front of Qiao Yushan. If Qiao Yushan said something to her company's boss, she would have to pack up and leave. Su Weifeng, can we leave a phone number and WeChat? Qian Lijun was a little cautious. Su Weifeng smiled and said, of course, I wanted to ask you last time. I haven't contacted my classmates for many years. Qian Lijun quickly added WeChat to Su Weifeng, and then said excitedly, that's perfect. You are the only classmate missing from our class. You have also contacted us this time. Let's have a class reunion later. Do you have time to attend? No problem. Su Weifeng nodded happily, and then said, don't spread the relationship between Qiao Yushan and me among classmates. No. Qian Lijun nodded in agreement. Song Na said with a beaming smile, we will never tell anyone about this. This means that the relationship between Su Weifeng and Qiao Yushan is a secret among the classmates, and she and Qian Lijun are the ones who are going to keep the secret for Su Weifeng. This obviously brings them closer to Su Weifeng, so how can she not be happy? After adding WeChat, Su Weifeng said that he had something to do first, and Qian Lijun and Song Na quickly made way. Su Weifeng was not the first to come to the company. There were already several employees in the company. Now there are almost 20 employees in the company, more than 10 actors, and there are also photographers, screenwriters, and financial personnel. Hello, Vice President Su. Seeing Su Weifeng, everyone immediately greeted him. As for the position in the company, under Su Weifeng's insistence, Lin Zhuangxuan was still made the general manager, and Su Weifeng was only a deputy general manager. Su Weifeng is indeed a major shareholder, but Su Weifeng is not professional in this industry. Let more professional people do things, and give them power. This is something Su Weifeng is very clear about. Moreover, Su Weifeng just had nothing to do in this company for the time being, so he just wanted to find something to do first. If he took up too important a position, once he left, it would have a very bad impact on the company. He had just entered his office when Lin Zhuangxuan pushed the door open and came in with a dissatisfied look on her face, saying, "Hey, you are too good-tempered, aren't you? Are you talking about Song Na and the others?" When Su Weifeng was talking to Song Na and the others, he found that Lin Zhuangxuan was not far away, but Lin Zhuangxuan didn't show up at that time. Lin Zhuangxuan said with a stern face, "Yes, don't you remember what she said last time? How dare I talk to you about classmate relationship at this time?" Su Weifeng still smiled faintly and said, "It's just a small matter, there's really no need to remember it. Whether she looks up to me or looks down on me, it actually has no effect on me at all." Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly put her elbows on the desk, put her face in front of Su Weifeng, and looked Su Weifeng up and down with a weird look, and didn't speak for a long time. Su Weifeng looked at her and said, "What's that look in your eyes? Why am I so nervous?" Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly said, "I suddenly seem to understand why you are so good-tempered." "Why?" Su Weifeng asked with a smile. Lin Zhuangxuan said seriously, "In your eyes, Kan Lejun and Song Na are just so small figures. You don't take them seriously at all, so no matter how much they jump, you don't take it seriously at all. In other words, in your eyes, they are like two ignorant children, so you don't have to care about them at all." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "Are you overestimating me a little bit?" Lin Zhuangxuan shook her head and said, "Absolutely not. Don't forget that I'm going to be a director, so I'm very professional in the study of human nature, and I have also studied a lot of psychology. I also understand people's macro expressions. I didn't pay much attention to it before, but now I have studied you carefully and have indeed found many abnormalities." "No way. Why do you feel a little scared when you hear this? I won't have any secrets in front of you in the future, right? I'm not that great. I just can see your detached mentality. You must have had some wonderful experiences in the past to be so indifferent to many things. You must tell me about it in the future. You are definitely a treasure. As long as I dig you out, I will most likely be able to make an amazing film." Lin Zhuangxuan became more and more excited as she spoke. She blinked her big lively eyes and said, "You are not allowed to refuse." Su Weifeng smiled and said, "I'm just afraid that you will be disappointed." Lin Zhuangxuan stared at Su Weifeng and said confidently, "You will definitely surprise me, I'm sure of it." A girl who believes in herself so much makes Su Weifeng feel very comfortable. He said, "Okay, let's talk about it later. Today is your first day of official work. How are you lying in front of me now? Oh, your posture." Su Weifeng quickly turned his eyes away. Lin Zhuangxuan glanced down, then stood up in a flash, straightened his collar with his hands, and said in shame and anger, "You hooligan." Su Weifeng said with a smile, "This is also my fault. I didn't ask you to lie on the table. Humph, if not you, who should I blame? Can't you not look? I don't want to look, but you are there. It's hard for me not to look." Lin Zhuangxuan said even more angrily, "Ah, you mean I'm not attractive at all, and you can only look at me because you have no choice?" Su Weifeng was stunned. What kind of logic is this? Are you letting me look or not? Seeing Su Weifeng's stunned look, Lin Zhuangxuan suddenly burst out laughing and said, "You, a straight man, can actually date my sister. Yeah, I see. Maybe you two are similar, so you can be together." Su Weifeng breathed a sigh of relief and said, "You scared me to death. You confused me." Lin Zhuangxuan rolled her eyes at Su Weifeng and said, "You took advantage of me, and I'm not allowed to lose my temper. You should coax me and apologize. Alas, I really don't know how to say it to you." Su Weifeng laughed dryly twice and felt that this matter was really profound. He had been around women over the years, but they were all women who were more manly than men. He really didn't understand this kind of little girl's trouble, and he didn't know how to deal with it. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.